Our story starts with a young girl who's fast asleep but lost in the dream world. She suddenly wakes up, realizing that she's just had a precognitive dream. Sometime in April, she's on a bus juggling between several thoughts. She notes that it's an important time when she should focus on her long-term training, where she'd have a chance to get a ticket for the national team. "This isn't the time for me to wear a cast," she says, looking at her broken leg and blaming a certain Nam Sayo. Then she recalls how she sustained a fractured leg by catching her brother, who jumped off a building. She notes that after saving her brother, her luck has died for about a year or more. Amid her thoughts, the bus stops and a student from her school enters. Seeing how tall the guy is, she wonders if he's really an athlete. She continuously stares at him while he greets her and takes a seat right in front of her. She takes note of all the details about this guy, down to his piercings, shoulder, and scent. According to her, she's smelling the faint smell of soap that's about to disappear, along with the morning air. She finds it so funny that she's about to laugh because she feels like she's the only one who can smell the soap. She tries so hard to hold in her laughter by tapping on her thighs, drawing the guy's attention. He turns around and whispers, calling her a pervert, and this puts her in a state of confusion. She then realized that from the moment he got on the bus, she forgot all about the competitions. The young girl, who we now know as Namgyo, arrives at school and meets other students doing their run, and some even make fun of her broken leg. Suddenly her friend Moon Ji-sung walks up to her, suggesting they go in together. While they are alone, he inquires if she's taking a break from training, and she affirms by saying that she should do nothing for a while. They discuss for a while, and she subconsciously notices his ears, and the image of the guy from the bus flashes before her, and this makes her question if she's really a pervert. Amid their conversation, a girl called Yunsu walks by, questioning why Namgyo is there when she can't even run. Furthermore, she adds that Namgyo went around saying that she'll be on the national team and the Olympics, but now she can't even compete in the preliminary match. Hearing all this, Moon Gi-sung warns her to be careful of what she says, but she yells at him and questions his position to tell her off. To her surprise, Namgyo tells her off by stating that the coach showed her videos as her training references, yet she can't even follow them after watching them 100 times. She should be the one feeling embarrassed, isn't that right? After Namgyo is done dishing out these words, the girl walks away angrily. Surprised at what he just heard, Moon Ji-sung pinches her lips and says that she'll screw up big time with that mouth of hers. They joke around for a while, and then he leaves her to go wash up. A while later, as the register is being called in class, the teacher notices Namgyo's absence and asks if she hasn't returned from the training room, but the girl from earlier raises her hand and spills what shouldn't have been said. Moon Gi-sung immediately whispers to her, asking if she has to tell everything, and if it's because of what happened earlier. He wonders why they hate each other so much, but she responds by telling him that there's no need for him to stand up for Namgyo because she's a genius. She explains that it's not because she hates her, but rather she hates seeing her act like a genius while being pitiful all alone. On the other hand, there's Namgyo with her broken leg, struggling to climb up the stairs. She's anxious because of the pain she feels and the difficulty in walking around with only one foot. Thinking to herself, she acknowledges that while she's limping, others like Yunsu will go forward in a flash while sneering at her. It's just as Yunsu said, she acts tough, but actually, she's in a bind. She finally gets to the top of the building, and immediately, a voice says that she can't just come up there as she likes, and as she turns, she realizes it's the same guy from the bus. Anxiety instantly takes over her, but she tries to hide it by asking what he's talking about when he's also up there. Seeing that his initial plan has failed, the guy offers her a spot to sit, claiming that they could see her from the sports field if she stands. Seeing how considerate the guy turns out to be, she admits that she's been anxious for no reason. So she struggles to sit while the guy offers a helping hand once more, which she declines. She then asks if he's the one who greeted her on the bus and if he knows her, but he decides to joke around by playing dumb. Out of the blue, he calls out his name Cha Gyeol and says that her face told him that she was very curious about his name, but she screams, saying that she was not. Surprisingly, she inquires if his name is only a single character, which is quite unusual in Korea. As time goes by, Namgyo realizes that the unpleasant anxiety that had been lingering on her for a long time went away easily as if it was never there. She was certainly serious up until now, but now she feels like going crazy because it keeps hurting her pride, but she'll brace herself again. As their conversation continues, he asks about her name, and she introduces herself as Namgyo. All the while, she has thoughts of first love in mind. H2Ns. In another scene, she's with the coach who's questioning her about her fractured leg, but her current situation makes him so frustrated and lost for words. He advises her not to push herself too hard and to have a good rest until the doctors say she's fine. One could tell that these are words mixed with worry, but feelings like hopelessness and disappointment inevitably come along. She feels like she probably has become the abandoned card in the coach's plan, although it was inevitable. Amid their conversation, he reveals that he heard from her teacher that she skipped class, and then he asks if she's rebelling because she got hurt. On hearing the question, her mind races back to when she fell asleep with her new friend Cha Gyeol, so she tells the coach that she just fell asleep somewhere. He understands that she's restless because she got hurt, but he advises her again to brace her mind and to only do exercises for the year and not worry, as this isn't the end. After their meeting is over, she thinks to herself, saying that she thought that she reached all the way here because of her choices, but looking at how nothing goes the way she wants it to, she wonders if she has no choice or if she's on a different but fixed path. On her way back with her friend Moon Gi-sung, she notices him intensely staring in another direction and questions him about it. He responds by saying that he thinks he saw someone and suggests she heads inside first. Who could it possibly be for him to be in such a rush? She asks herself. Meanwhile, Moon Gi-sung stands by the window observing the person with blonde hair who looks so much like Namgyo's brother. He feels she'd be worried if he told her so. He came out alone, but as he stands there, he recalls the words of Yunsu telling him that there's no need for him to side with his friend Namgyo, but since it's already a habit now, he decides to do things as he likes. So he follows her brother to where he's going with his friends, and on getting there, he notices that some of them even have cigarettes in their hand. He calls out Namseo, but a particular guy holds him firmly, asking if he really wants to go, and guess who it is? The guy from the bus with lots of piercings, Cha Gyeol. I knew he was up to no good from his appearance, or maybe not. Cha Gyeol asks Namseo if he and Moon Gi-sung know each other, and he affirms by saying he's his sister's friend. So Cha Gyeol, still holding him, decides to walk with him and send him off to Moon Gi-sung, surprising the other guys. While he's walking with his hand on his shoulder, he continuously ignores Moon Gi-sung, who keeps on inquiring about where he's going with Namseo. As they continue walking, he tries to console Namseo, who's still crying because of his experience with the other guys, and after a moment, he heads back. Confused, Moon Gi-sung asks Namseo if something is going on and if Cha Gyeol bullied him, but he tries to explain that the guy isn't like that. He recalls all that transpired earlier. It turns out the other guys were bullies, and Cha Gyeol saved him from getting bullied by them, although he didn't understand why he was helping him. Still not convinced, Moon Gi-sung probes further, asking him why he suddenly became so quiet, but he still insists that his savior isn't that kind of guy, so he need not worry. However, he can't help but worry, and he even shares that his sister is also worried about average age Dio's only concerns are if he'll tell his sister again, how he knew his location, and if his sister sent her friend to monitor him. Moon Gi-sung explains that he came there without his sister's knowledge, and he also saw him by chance and followed him. But to his surprise, Namseo tells him that he also lives quite frustratingly, and then walks away. How disrespectful. In another scene, Namgyo is in bed alone, feeling so bored. She stares at her phone, waiting for a reply from her friend, when she suddenly hears the doorbell ring. She limps out of her room thinking it's her mom, only to discover that it's her brother who's returning so late. She questions his late return, but he says that it's none of her business, and even adds that she must have nothing to do since she keeps staying at home and meddling. She follows him to his room just as he's about to shut the door, asking why he's picking up a fight with her today, but he returns a question to her, asking if she isn't being like this because she heard something from Moon Gi-sung again. On the other hand, in the bustling streets of the city, an average-aged man walks up to Cha Gyeol, advising him to stop smoking in front of an adult, but the young boy replies by telling him to let it slide as the substance he's smoking has no nicotine in it. Meanwhile, back at the house, Namgyo is still trying to get some information out of her brother, who just returned home at a late hour. She even promises not to get mad at him after he comes out of his room. Hearing all he's said so far, she asks him why he keeps talking about her friend Moon Gi-sung. Just as she's still scolding him, a call comes in from her friend, so she tells her brother that she's going to get the information he's hiding from her friend since he doesn't want to spill. It is then he opens the door and runs after her, trying to stop her from taking the call. But before he can catch up, she enters her room and shuts the door behind her. While still on the call, she pleads for his honesty and asks about what her brother did today. From his observation, he suspects that Namseo might have already been found out, so he just decides to quickly say that he brought him away from some bad kids, and also adds that he warned him as well. Before he can even warn her against saying too much to her brother, she hangs up and walks out of her room, inquiring who the kids are and what he did to get dragged away by them. "Do you go around antagonizing people like you do with me?" She asks further, and he replies by saying that he has no money or backing to hang out with other kids, and so he thought that something might fall off if he sucked up those guys. He recalls the words that they said to him earlier and tells his sister that the reason is that the kids at school ignore him. She continues to question him, but his only response is that she doesn't know anything until the end. After hearing this, Namgyo quietly walks away to go prepare something for her brother to eat before heading out. She informs him about the meal she's prepared and drops a message for their mother before leaving the house. On her way to the convenience store, she keeps thinking about what her brother said about her not knowing anything until she suddenly comes across her new friend Cha Gyeol. Shocked, she wonders why she always sees him at times like this, when she doesn't want to think about anything but just run away. While she's out there conversing with him, her friend Moon Gi-sung is trying to reach her on the phone. Amid their conversation, Cha Gyeol notices her phone ringing from her pocket and informs her about it, and when she takes the call, Moon Gi-sung expresses his worry about her because her brother told him that she left the house and hasn't come back. Following this, he asks if she got really mad at him or her brother, but she feels bad that he knows, and she, the sister, doesn't know anything. All through the time she's on the call, she can't help but notice how much Cha Gyeol keeps loitering. Despite all her efforts to remain focused to get the information she needs on the call, he keeps distracting her with certain gestures that she has to postpone the call. After she drops the call, she turns to him with a serious face and asks if he knows her brother, but he reminds her that this is the first time she's mentioned that she has a brother. Now, recalling all that her friend told her on the phone, she asks him what exactly he's hiding from her. Instead of giving her a reply, he offers to take her home instead, but she declines and asks him if he'll tell her if they get close. With a smirk, he says, "We'll see." Thinking to herself, she says that since the moment she met him for the first time, she's been determined to listen once again if it's his words. The next day, she's with Moon Gi-sung, who wants to know if she's spoken to her brother, but she responds by telling him that her brother locked his door and didn't even talk to her. Rather, he called Cha Gyeol. Then she asks if he has seen this Cha Gyeol in question being together with her brother or harassing him, but he declines and says that he only saw him yesterday for the first time. Worried, she asks how he found out about him, and he replies that it's from asking. However, it looks like the guy in question didn't do something personally to her brother. He assures her not to worry as Cha Gyeol doesn't even come to school often, but he curiously asks if she knows about the kid in question, and she responds saying she only knows him roughly, or rather, he's just a kid she doesn't know. She inwardly wishes he had no relation with her brother, although she likes him acting like a gangster. Also, she wishes he wasn't a gangster and he came to school as well. She wishes she could like him proudly without having any second thoughts because he makes her think of nothing else. At school the next day, Namgyo is seated on the floor grumbling as she angrily cleans all the sports equipment. Suddenly, Yunsu walks in laughing and mocking her. Despite Namgyo's request for her to stop annoying her, she insists that she came there because she also has something to do. She stares at her, revealing that she's bored, but Namgyo responds saying that if she's bored, she can wipe the equipment in her place instead. "If I do that, you will be too useless," Yunsu replies, and as if that's not enough, she steps on the already cleaned items and throws a ball at her. How much more cruelty can come from this girl? Now in the training room, Yunsu puts in her best at training while the coach watches her, but despite all her efforts, he informs her that her feet are still heavy and suggests they take a short break. He urges her to do well now that Namgyo is not around because when her legs heal up, it'll just take a while for her to catch up. So she should get a medal in her absence. With this being said, she promises to get the medal before the coach leaves her. She's still trying to deal with the frustration when her friend walks in, inquiring if she's okay, while offering her a drink. Seeing how annoyed she is over the whole Namgyo issue, her friend reminds her of what she said about doing something about the situation, and so she whispers, asking if she should just lock her up somewhere like a warehouse. Shocked, her friend screams that it's a crime and tries to warn her against the repercussions if caught in the process, but she asserts that she won't be caught. Meanwhile, in the storehouse, Namgyo, who had fallen asleep earlier, wakes up, wondering when it got to nighttime. She notices a jacket on her body, but while she stares at it, she hears Cha Gyeol's voice asking if she's awake. He even suggests that they get along well for the rest of the day. Could this mean that they've been locked up together? Confused and somewhat embarrassed, she asks what he means by such a statement, and without even hearing his response, she heads toward the door, trying to run away quickly, only to discover that the door is locked. She tries to reach for her phone, but recalls that she left it in the classroom, so she asks for his phone and instructs him to try calling someone from outside. Surprisingly, he replies that he can't do that because his phone has no battery left. How frustrating it must be for our female lead. With no means to exit the storehouse, she begins screaming for help, but he reminds her that everyone's probably watching the soccer match, so she should just give up because no one would hear her. In her musings, she wonders why nothing works out for her these days and why only bad things happen, as if it's been waiting for her. Now it feels just as if someone is planning to destroy her. Amid her musings, Cha Gyeol's voice pierces through the air, gently calling out her name and expressing concern over her standing and her condition. This comes as a huge shock to her, and so she inwardly asserts that he's a dangerous guy, and if she sits next to him, it might get really dangerous. Though she feels ashamed of her attempt to run away, she notes how he makes her approach him with her own feet, and concludes that she can't win against him. Subsequently, he holds her hand, asking if she doesn't want to sit, but all the while, she keeps on thinking about his subtle touch, before asking if he isn't holding her hand with any thoughts. In her head, she's already thinking that he'll just cunningly play games with her again, but to her surprise, he takes his hand off her and apologizes immediately. He also promises to sit far away from her if she feels uncomfortable. She can't even believe her eyes right now because she thought that he would come at her shamelessly, but here he is, getting embarrassed. Such a cutie. After a moment, he mentions that the situation seems a bit strange because her coach knows that she's in the storehouse, yet he locked the door without even checking it. He shares that he feels like someone deliberately locked the door, and just then, the realization of the culprit dawns on her. "I barely crossed the mountain. Just wait when the door opens, Yunsu," she says, fuming with rage. Seeing him pick up his jacket, she asks if he put it over her, and he affirms, saying she looks cold but threw it as soon as she woke up. She apologizes and explains that she didn't do that on purpose, rather she was just out of her mind. Now, the thing is, she was just happy back then, and she was busy being excited because she liked being with him. And if only he knew what she was feeling back then, he would not have been gaggling tactlessly. On the other hand, there's Cha Gyeol's friend, who thinks it's a good thing for him to be locked up with a girl alone. Back at the storehouse, Cha Gyeol asks Namgyo if her legs aren't cold since she's wearing a skirt. After a moment of argument, he takes off the jacket and starts showing her how she can use it in her favor, but she rejects it again. He teases her by asking if he should take off his pants too, but she screams in shock, causing him to laugh at her. She notices his demeanor and assumes that he must be cold too, so she invites him over to sit close to her, but he declines and later decides to trust her for once at least. This isn't the first time he is sitting next to her closely, but strangely, she's feeling nervous. She points out his looks and suggests that it's better if they stick together so she can cover him too, since it's his jacket after all. So he accepts the offer and moves closer, while Namgyo can't stop thinking about the fact that their shoulders just touched slightly and her body became hot in an instant. She even thinks that it must be why everyone hugs each other when they're watching disaster movies. Lost in thoughts? She says that when Cha Gyeol is with her in the warehouse, he might have seen it as a tragedy to get involved with her. The next morning, as he watches her sleep, he softly calls out her name, saying that she needs to wake up because people will start coming soon. As he wears his jacket, he tells her to say she doesn't know him when they go outside, and when she asks why, he replies by saying that he likes that better. Confused, she probes further, but he says nothing else and starts banging on the door calling for help. Luckily for them, a security guard just happens to be passing at that time. Still trying to understand what he means, she calls him, but he signals her to keep shut. And just then, the security guard opens the door and inquires how long he's been there. He only responds by informing him that there's one more person inside, and when the man confirms his statement, he asks Namgyo if she's acquainted with the male student who just went outside. Remembering his instruction earlier, she denies knowing him. Now outside, Cha Gyeol walks up the stairs, possibly heading to his friend's house, and when he arrives at his destination, his friend comes out with a swollen face. He looks rather shocked to see him and insists on talking outside, which he agrees to. Before he knows what's happening, Cha Gyeol grabs his face and says that he feels like punching it to fill in the other side that isn't swollen. When his friend requests to know the reason behind the sudden urge to punch him, he replies by asserting that he's the one who locked the storehouse door. He's even still insisting that Cha Gyeol should be grateful because he let him be alone with a girl, and he responds by smirking and saying that this is why he wants to show his gratitude more. Still holding his face, he threatens him never to say a word about how and who he got hurt, no matter what happens. Later that day, a teacher walks up to Namgyo expressing his concern over her experience of being locked in the warehouse. He explains that the coach said that she didn't come for a long time, and the warehouse door was already locked, which is why they thought that no one was inside there. While she explains what happened to her that night, he pens down all her statements and mentions that the security guard said that a male student was also there with her. He even insinuates that something secretive must have happened, and that if it were hard for her to talk about it, he'd call for a female teacher. However, she still insists that nothing of such happened, and that she does not know who the male student is. Furthermore, the teacher tries to get more information out of her, but she remains firm in her claim that she doesn't know who the male student is. She recalls her mom calling her to yell for not calling her earlier. For some reason, she was scared that Namgyo might have run away from home. Worried, the young girl asked her mother if she did report to the police, but she replied by saying that since her daughter does not belong to the streets and is not a stubborn kid, she did not report. However, she was about to report if she didn't contact her until morning. She warned her to make sure she calls beforehand next time if she's going to be late or not coming home. She assures the teacher that she told her parents that she fell asleep at school, so there's no problem. To aid the investigation process, he asks her if there's someone she's suspicious of among the people she last saw, but she affirms negatively even though she has Yunsu in mind. He instructs her to go to the nurse's office to warm up, since she must have been cold all night long. Just as the teacher steps out of the office, he sees Yunsu and her other friend right in front of the door, but he only instructs them to go to class early just before leaving. Seeing how much Yunsu is panicking, her friend pulls her and says that they need to talk somewhere else because it wouldn't feel right if they bumped into Namgyo. They move to a corner and the other girl starts questioning Yunsu, inquiring if she really did lock the poor girl in the warehouse, but she responds by assuring her that she didn't do it. Yunsu continuously tries to prove to her friend that she didn't lock up Namgyo, but in the process, another female student overhears their conversation. After eavesdropping a little more, the girl walks away excited that she finally got an interesting news after a while, and wonders who she should tell first. Meanwhile, Namgyo is in the nurse's office having some rest, but several thoughts keep running through her mind. It's been a long bad habit of her to expect her parents to worry about her. It usually ends with her one-sided heartbeat. She acknowledges that her parents have a lot of things to worry about other than about the kids, so she understands that they do not care about her. She was quite jealous of her brother before this incident, but she's glad that her mom really does worry about her. Her dad's health is the only concern of late, and she doesn't even know when he'll be able to work. Still in deep thought, she says that she must inform the teacher to not tell her mom about it in detail and just let it pass. After all, that night wasn't so bad. In a split second, she falls asleep and begins having a very weird dream about Cha Gyeol and his friend. She suddenly wakes up wondering why she keeps having such weird dreams. Last time she didn't win a medal, and this time she dreamt of Cha Gyeol. However, one question lingers. Who is the person he's fighting with, and why does she partly recognize his face? She opens her eyes only to find her friend Moon Gi-sung sitting beside her. They walk out of the office while he inquires about what happened to her, but even after she explains, he still doubts that it's the complete story. Just as she's about to open the door, despite his offer to help, she stumbles, leaving him with no option but to catch her in midair. Well, you can say that our female lead is quite a stubborn one. Moon Gi-sung holds her in that position for a while until she reminds him to let go, after which she explains that she has a lot of things she's annoyed with, so he shouldn't dare add in more. When he asks about what is annoying her so much, she points out that her legs, Yunsu, and even opening the door is getting on her nerves. Hearing the name Yunsu, he quickly recalls an encounter with her and asks Namgyo what she would do if Yunsu really wanted to get close to her. She laughs it off, deeming it impossible because she's always hated her from the start. She adds that they have already become seniors and it doesn't even make sense if she wants to get close to her after all these times. On the other hand, there's Yunsu seated on the stairs, overhearing their conversation. She even carries the burden of the frustration to her friends in the Taekwondo training. In another scene, Cha Gyeol's friends are in a playground waiting for him. They ask Woojin, the particular one he beat up before, about his whereabouts, but he angrily replies by saying that it's none of his business. In the middle of their conversation, Namseo strides in, apologizing for the last encounter with them, but Woojin seems not to be having it at all. He even believes that Cha Gyeol is coming behind him, but Namseo confirms that he isn't related to him and doesn't know him. As the bullies that they are, one of them tries to hit him after hearing him say this, but Woojin stops him, curious to hear the details. After discovering that they aren't related, he ponders why he did what he did on that day, and also questions the real identity of Namseo. Meanwhile, Namgyo, who's grappling with the tension in her leg while walking, suddenly hears the voices of some people laughing. As she continues to make her way, she comes across a group of young guys, and to her surprise, her brother Namseo is among them. Sweat rolls down his face as soon as he catches sight of his sister, and then she signals him to come to her. He pushes her out of the sight of the other guys and asks what she's doing there, but she spanks him and explains that she's on her way home to wash up because her bandage smells after she removes the cast. Now it's her turn to do the questioning. "What are you doing here?" "It is class time right now," she asks curiously. They engage in a sibling feud for a while until Woojin makes his way there and immediately Namgyo sees him. She recognizes him as the guy Cha Gyeol beat up in her dream. Namseo introduces her as his sister, while inwardly noting that she's scared, but Woojin stares at her, recalling the moment he locked the storehouse door. Namseo asks if he can take his sister to the corner, and the request is approved. He's then told to grab a drink on his way back. As he walks with his sister, he notices her quiet demeanor and asks if she's scared, but she doesn't respond. He then assures her that if he's late returning home, he will be with the friends she saw earlier. He asks her to pass this message to their mom and to give him some money to buy the drink that Woojin requested. Just as he's about to put his hand in her pocket, she grabs him and says she's seen that guy before, but her brother thinks it's probably because they went to the same school. To his surprise, she mentions that she saw him in her dream, but she's sure that he's the one. Then she asks, why is he fighting with Cha Gyeol? Afterward, Namgyo returns to the classroom, but her classmates gather around her inquiring about her well-being. She lets them know that she isn't sick, rather she's just thinking about some things. Their demeanor toward her felt quite different on this particular day, and she didn't understand why they all kept commenting on her kindness. They reveal that they heard about what happened to her, and while they are still at it, Yunsu walks into the classroom with all eyes fixated on her. Some people even curse at her, while one girl complains about the smell of her food and suggests that she eat outside. Baffled, Yunsu walks toward the window, opens it, and also asks why the girl is complaining about the smell of her food out of the blue when this isn't even the first time she's had chicken breasts in the restaurant. She points out that they always eat in the classroom too, so why are they being this way today? While she's still questioning their attitude, Moon Ji-sung walks in and calls her out for a while. The other students in the classroom are left wondering why she's going out with Moon Gi-sung when Namgyo is there. This only baffles Namgyo so much more that she has to ask if they're talking about her and why their attitude suddenly changed towards Yunsu. To worsen the whole case, one girl asks her why she keeps covering up for Yunsu when they've already heard everything about her act of locking her up in the warehouse. They share that everyone in the Taekwondo club knew that she was jealous of her, but they never thought she would go to the extent of locking her up. Hearing this, Namgyo inwardly mentions that she never said it to Moon Gi-sung, so she wonders how they know about it. But then, she replies by telling them that it's not certain yet. Before they know what's going on, Yunsu storms back into the classroom screaming her friend's name, Park Hyo-yeon, and asking if she went around telling everyone about their little secret. She questions her audacity to spread such a false rumor, but her friend still insists that she didn't do anything, and another girl even calls her noisy. Seeing how much things have escalated, Yunsu turns to Namgyo asking if she's the one who spread such false rumors, since it wasn't her friend. Filled with so much hatred and anger, she slams her hand on the desk and asks if that isn't the truth. She says that she's not the one who spread the rumor, but she wonders if that's the truth. Besides, she always wanted to do something to her every time she had the chance to, so probably it must be the same this time too. Namgyo goes on and on, talking about Yunsu's mean behavior, until things begin to get intense to the extent of Yunsu hitting her. Following this, Namgyo has no choice but to retaliate by slapping her back. In the next scene, both girls are being scolded in the teacher's office for their uncouth behavior. Seeing the bruises on Yunsu's face, he mentions that athletes shouldn't swing their fists recklessly. he turns to Yunsu, particularly scolding her for trying to hit her classmate who's wearing a cast. He even adds that even though Namgyo started the fight, she should have endured it because she's the captain of the Taekwondo club. After much hesitation, Namgyo admits to being the one who started the fight. She claims that she hit her because she was too angry at that moment and begs the teacher to allow her to take part in competitions. Suddenly, Yunsu speaks up, also claiming to be the one who started the fight. All Namgyo is trying to do here is help, but she's really clueless about it, so she keeps on implicating herself. Confused, the teacher asks both of them to head to the counseling room to write their statement, and after that, he'll be the one to decide whether they'll be disciplined or out of the sports club. Now, at the counselor's office to write the statement, they still engage in another argument over the details to write. Sadly, this is so frustrating to Yunsu so much because she's actually innocent of what she's being accused of. After a moment of silence, Namgyo asks her why she just did what she did, and also says that if only she keeps her mouth shut, it'll end with just her getting disciplinary action, so she shouldn't interfere. Yunsu stands firm in her belief that nothing good will come out of it if she's the only one who gets out of the situation free. As it is now, the whole class doubts her, so she can't certainly say that it's not her. They begin to exchange words again until Yunsu finally gives up. All the while, Moon Jisung is standing outside the office, waiting for his friend to come out. He apologizes for not being able to pay attention and explains that he's been so busy lately because of the competition and some other things. "What are you saying?" she asks, bewildered. He responds by apologizing again for finding out late about what Yunsu did and what happened in the classroom earlier. She finds his words strange because it's not his business, and he has absolutely nothing to be sorry about. She advises him to just care about his competition because she can't even compete even if she wants to. Good for him that he can just do sports without any headaches. She urges him to go back to training while she goes to submit the written statement. But just as she turns to leave, he pulls her back, saying that he has something to say. She inquires if it's something urgent, and when he replies, she suggests he tell her through a call later, as he also has to go for training. Still not satisfied with her response, he mentions that it'll be night by the time he finishes training, but this is kind of strange to her because he never used to think about the time. She insists that he calls her regardless of the time, after which she walks away. Left with no other option, he asserts that he'll call her later at home. Why is he acting so weird? Is he starting to like her or something? Now seated on the bus on her way home, Namgyo goes through her chat with Moon Gishung, postponing their intended conversation. While she's still thinking about it, guess who unexpectedly gets on the bus and pokes her? Cha Gyeol. Startled, she asks him how he knew she would be here at this hour, and he replies by saying that he waited at the bus stop starting around the time they saw each other the last time. And about 4 buses passed by. "What if we had missed each other?" she asks curiously. He responds saying that it's because he wanted to see her. She tells him that it wouldn't be difficult if he showed up to school every day to justify his actions. He says that he stayed up all night again. To avert the topic, she wants to know if he remembers seeing her on the bus and his reason for embarrassing her by acting like he didn't. In response, he says that it's so that he can see her get all embarrassed. She playfully thumps his thigh upon hearing this, and he utters a statement that baffles her. Something bad will happen. A sudden quietness fills the air, while she inwardly wonders what the bad thing is that will happen. Lost in her musings, she mentions that it's not a big deal to hold hands anymore, and yet, she's always the only one who freezes whenever it happens. If she shows any signs of letting go of his hand, she's afraid he'll get distant from her like he did in the storage room, and she can't let that happen. So, she turns to him and mentions that she got punished at school because she had a fight with her classmate, and she has to clean the restroom with the person for the time being. He can't believe that she got punished for just arguing, but then she reveals that it got physical, with much urgency. He grabs her, searching if she got hurt in the process. She assures him that she's fine, and in fact, she was the one who hit the girl first. She explains all that happened to him, and he commends the girl by saying that she sounds like a good friend who was probably being considerate because she didn't want her to be in pain. All the while, Namgyo still thinks that something is fishy because Yunsu, who she fought with, is usually not one to hold back. Then she corrects his statement of being friends with her. Speaking of friends, she recalls the guy from her dream and asks him if he happens to have one with a big scar on his jaw. He responds by saying that the guy is not really a friend, but he knows who he is, and then he immediately asks if she knows him or if he said something to her. She declines, saying that she saw him by chance, and adds that she should probably be a fortune teller. When he inquires what she means by that, she explains that she once had a dream about him and the guy fighting, and he punched him till he started bleeding from a cut right next to his eyes. While Cha Gyeol is still questioning if it was a precognitive dream, she further explains that she didn't even know the guy when she had the dream, and she was so shocked when she saw him in real life. He tries to wave it off by saying dreams mean nothing, but she interjects and mentions that there's more, so he should hear her out. Then she shares that she has a bad feeling about it, and she's nervous because this guy question seems to be getting involved with her brother too. "Your brother?" he asks, surprised, and she says that she saw them together a few days ago and was worried. Surprisingly, she asks if he knows her brother, who is a first-year student with blonde hair, and he replies that he split them apart last time because it looked like he ran out of luck and got stuck with them, so he took him out of there. As the loving sister that she is, she requests that if such a thing happens again, he should help her brother, which he agrees to and looks away. Thinking to herself, she's glad that it was a misunderstanding, but she's bothered that he won't show her his face. She watches him as he rubs his eyes, looking all sleepy, and then she recalls that he mentioned staying up really late. She continues to stare at him until they eventually make eye contact, which results in a kiss. Amid the kiss, his eyes light up widely, and he immediately begins to apologize, saying he did it in his sleep. He continues apologizing and wiping her face. Meanwhile, she can't believe that she just had her first kiss with a guy who claims he did it in his sleep. He pleads for her not to cry and also urges her to hit him if she wants to. But to his greatest surprise, she reveals that was her first kiss. Hearing this, he lifts his head and asks if she's mad at him, but deep down her mind, this is something she has been wanting to ask him. She'd been holding it in because she was afraid it would make her look inexperienced, but she recklessly blurted it all because she couldn't calm down after their lips touched. She inwardly acknowledges that she's been completely defeated as they share a kiss once more. The next day, the new lovebirds arrive at school together, while the other students are jogging. Cha Gyeol notes that it's his second time seeing people on the sports teams jogging in the morning because of how early he came to school that day, and all this effort is just so that he can see someone special. As someone new to dating, Namgyo is just putting up a wall because she feels sorry, so she instructs him not to wait for her next time as she wakes up out of habit but doesn't know what time she'll be out. He readily agrees with this decision by stating that today is the last day he'd do that, leaving her slightly hurt as she didn't expect such a quick response. He hands her his phone and says that he was waiting for her to ask for his number, but she never did, so he suggests that henceforth she should ask him everything right away. During their moment together, Moon Gi-sung approaches her and asks what she's doing, but he instantly recognizes Cha Gyeol. Before responding to him, she quickly returns her now boyfriend's phone and dismisses him, leaving Moon Gi-sung curious as to whether they know each other. He tries to explain to her that Cha Gyeol is the same guy he was telling her about, but she interrupts, saying that it was a misunderstanding and that her brother already vouched for Cha Gyeol. Moon Gi-sung asks if she really believes them, and she's like, well, they both said it's not true, so what can I do but believe them? Plus, I'm tired of being treated like a stalker. She tells him that she has something to ask her brother, so she'll take care of the matter without him having to worry anymore. "What's wrong with you these days?" he asks, dazed. When she asks what he means, he says that she keeps telling him not to worry. She sees this as no big deal, but he insists that it is, and asks what she's going to do if she gets caught with a guy like Cha Gyeol and loses her recognition as a gifted athlete. From the way he's sounding, she thinks that he's the one who's dealing with something and taking it out on her for no good reason. Plus, he even made her wait for him yesterday because he had something to tell her but ended up ignoring her text. After much hesitation, he explains that he wasn't in a situation to talk on the phone, and then he apologizes for being out of line. Despite Namgyo insisting that he can still tell her what he intended to, he cuts in and says that he just acted like that because she hasn't been hanging out with him lately, so they should stop talking about it. She tries to explain that it's not that she's not spending time with him, rather, it's that he's too busy to hang out. Clenching her crutches, she notices that he has changed the subject, and she wonders why though. While catching up, she draws him closer and whispers that she thinks something is going on between her and Cha Gyeol. After sharing this news with him, she urges him to keep it a secret because she's already walking on eggshells due to her injury, preventing her from training, so it would be bothersome if there were dating rumors about her. This comes as a shock to him because he recalls her saying she wasn't interested in things like that, but she replies by saying that life is unpredictable and that they are not really official yet. While she's still speaking to him, she unexpectedly gets a text from Cha Gyeol, causing her to twitch. And then she laughs and mentions that it's interesting. Just as she's about to head inside, she turns and tells him that if it's hard for him to tell her right away, she won't push him, so he should tell her when he's up for it because she can wait. Also, just in case he's gotten the wrong idea, she's not saying that he should stop worrying about her because she wants to draw a line between them. Truth be told, she didn't draw a line, she just didn't see the one that Moon Gi-sung had drawn. Then again, even if she had, there was nothing she could have done about it when she was head over heels for Cha Gyeol. In the following scene, Namgyo and Yunsu arrive at the school toilet for their punishment, and the whole place is an eyesore. Yunsu tells her to go sit somewhere, because it's obvious that she can't clean in her condition, and the teacher probably knew this was going to happen. Namgyo insists that she can't possibly let her clean the whole place all by herself, and she even reveals that she brought a waterproof cover to protect her leg while she works, but Yunsu tells her off, saying that she has a conscience. As the cleaning begins, Namgyo asks if she didn't really lock her up in the storage room, and she affirms negatively. She also shares that her friend Hyoyeon said it was her too, but Yunsu responds that her friend doesn't believe her. Moreover, she said she wouldn't tell anyone either, but it turned out to be a lie, so for that reason, their friendship is over. After a moment of silence, Namgyo asks why she hates her so much, and she takes a pause and mutters that she doesn't really hate her. She steps closer to her and explains that she acted like that because she envies her. Furthermore, she explains that she never won a match against her in middle school. At first, she was furious, then she got more and more envious. In the end, it turned into an unknown obsession. She would look for her news articles, but then she barely read them with her eyes open because of the jealousy that often boiled inside of her. It's not like that would mean she would see less of her photos because she couldn't bring herself to close the tab, but the more she found out about her, the more it stirred up her inferiority complex, yet she couldn't ignore her. They had already gone against each other several times in the same weight category, and it was understandable because she didn't really leave a deep impression, and she was merely a Taekwondo player who had to make an effort. Yunsu started to hate Namgyo's attitude of suddenly pretending to keep her in check, and after talking with her, she realized that she was ruder and more talented than she thought. Why was someone like Namgyo trying so hard when she was perfect in her eyes? Why would the coach and director give her so much advice when there's practically nothing to teach her? She had those thoughts for 2 years, and by the 3rd year of high school, they had become enemies. She says that if only she hadn't stopped her on her way home on that fateful day, perhaps she wouldn't have gotten into that accident that cost her leg. She wanted Namgyo to take it out on her, as she was too prideful for no reason to apologize to her first. She needed an excuse to say sorry, but despite her wishes, she never blamed her. Yunsu then reiterates that she wasn't the one who locked her up in the storage room, but she was craving her attention so much that she was glad that she got angry at her. She mentions that she has always wanted to be like Namgyo. Later that day, Namgyo and Cha Gyeol are having a chit-chat where she tells him about her conversation with Yunsu. After learning that she wasn't the one who locked her up in the warehouse, she's now left wondering if it was really an accident. She tells him that she feels a bit sorry for making a big deal out of the whole situation. However, she acknowledges that Yunsu has quite a temper too, and since the incident, she hasn't been close to their classmates, even her best friend. Cha Gyeol even suggests she use this opportunity to get close to her. Shifting the conversation, he inquires about the state of her leg, and she informs him that she has started physical therapy. It even gets as good as her not needing her crutches anymore. They stare at each other for a while in silence before she asks about his well-being. They chat for a while until she suddenly turns away. Despite his plea for her to turn to him, she stands and moves away. Her reason? Well, she wants to cool off her red face from blushing so much. To her surprise, he walks up to her, gently lifts her to a seat, and calls her a worrywart. She admits to always being one, and adds that she's worried about him, her brother, and her parents. Tenderly brushing his hand against her face, he says that it'd be nice if she could let go of her worries, but she goes on listing more things to be worried about. Their conversation lasts for a while, and then, out of the blue, she mentions that she likes him. What a coincidence that is, because he also feels the same way. She suggests they kiss, but he reminds her that they already did that in the morning. However, she still insists on getting a kiss. He finally gives in and pecks her on both cheeks, but before he even realizes it, she yanks his ears and begins kissing him. During their kiss, he mentions that rather than just kiss her, he wants to get a bit closer to her. They make a perfect match, don't they? Cha Gyeol is a bolt out of the blue and a catastrophe that shakes the end of her teens, and seeing how she's so sleeveless and willing means there's something wrong with her too. The force he pulls her with is so irresistibly huge like gravity that it makes all the problems around her really trivial. In the middle of this romantic moment, she has no idea that her phone is buzzing with calls from Moon Ji-sung. On the other hand, there's Moon Ji-sung, who's dealing with a lot of crises and hoping that his dear friend would take his call and save him from it, not knowing that she's all loved up with her lover. The next day, Cha Gyeol wakes up almost at noon and realizes that he has just missed school. He steps out of his room to greet his grandmother, only to find a man seated on the table with a meal served. Confused, he questions the man's presence there, and he replies by saying that he dropped by on his way home from work to get a taste of his grandmother's cooking. In the middle of their forced conversation, the man asks him if he still goes to school whenever he feels like, and he responds that he's been going every day lately. He explains that he's been having trouble sleeping lately, and then the man asks if it's because he's too busy dating. Seeing that he's been discovered, Cha Gyeol smirks and tries to deny it, but the man asks again if he isn't dating the girl he saw him with the last time. He even goes as far as describing her long hair and broken leg just to remind him. She's someone's precious daughter. Don't do anything funny and take good care of her, the man advises him before asking about his friend Woojin. The man then asks him to look after Woojin because he's just immature and he's got a weak mentality too. So, as the one who came to his senses first, he should help him out. But Cha Gyeol reminds the man that he told him not to hang out with Woojin, and also tells him that he can watch over him since he wants to be a detective. The man asks about his girlfriend again, but Cha Gyeol warns him to stop acting like he's in a relationship, and also says that Namgyo isn't someone he can be with. I hope this guy doesn't turn out to be bad for our female lead. The man dishes out some piece of advice and confiscates his electronic cigarette just before leaving. Meanwhile, back at the school, Namgyo has just gone to answer the teacher at the teacher's office. Apparently, her brother was bullied by Woojin and his friends, so the teacher invited her out of concern. So Namgyo barges into the office screaming her brother's name and asking what he has been up to that's making the teacher worry about him. He tries to hide his face, but she yanks off his hoodie, revealing his scarred face. And then the teacher starts explaining that he has been coming to class hurt lately, and she can't help but be worried about him. With no clue as to who hurt Namsayo, the teacher directs the question to his sister because she thinks that she might have an idea of who has been doing that to him. Just then, Namgyo leans closer to her brother and asks if it is Woojin who did this to him. Namgyo wants to confirm the culprit behind her brother's injuries, but Sayo doesn't intend on telling her. Even despite Gio's insistence, it seems that her brother is very intent on not telling her the person that has hurt him so badly. Seeing as their conversation is going nowhere, Namgyo says, "Fine, I will find him by myself." This prompts Namsayo to rush to his feet in an attempt to try and stop her. He thinks that Namgyo's show of concern is embarrassing, and rather, she should pretend it didn't happen. As a result, he gets a beating from his sister in a fit of rage. We see Namgyo leave her hurting brother on the ground, rushing to a third-year classroom in search of who she thinks is the culprit behind his injuries. Nam Sayo's classmates are visibly shaken by her sudden entry into the class. However, they need not worry because she soon leaves, seeing no sign of the person she's looking for. She tries to call Cha Gyeol but isn't successful. She checks another classroom, but doesn't find him there either. It's not like she expects him to be in the classroom, but it's frustrating that she can't find him anywhere. Isn't this guy a third-year student? Namgyo sees a boy standing outside the class and describes Cha Gyeol's appearance, asking if the boy knows what class he's in. However, as the boy is about to answer, Namgyo is suddenly grabbed from behind by Yunsu, who tells the boy not to worry. She says, "I'm going to take her with me." Despite Gio's attempts to make the girl let go of her, she fails miserably. Yunsu doesn't let her go until they get to the stairs where no one is around. She believes Gio is making a ruckus, prompting her to intervene. Namgyo doesn't want to tell her the reason behind her actions. However, it doesn't mean Unsu is oblivious to the truth. "Is this about your brother?" she asks, but doesn't get any reply from Gio. Yunsu informs Namgyo that even though she doesn't care about her grades, the teachers certainly do. She reveals that the teachers are looking for opportunities to punish student athletes because a number of them are causing problems in the school. Does Namgyo want that to happen to her? Namgyo confesses that she doesn't know what to do about Namsayo, always getting beat up by someone. Furthermore, she can't just stand by and do nothing. However, Yunsu advises her against making any rash decisions. Does Namgyo really want to get thrown out of the Taekwondo team for violent conduct? Does she really want to let her career get ruined for her brother's sake? Yunsu wants Namgyo to think about herself in all this. However, the girl can't help but wonder if something really bad happens to her brother, Namsayo, later. The way he's always getting beat up is very worrying. In addition, her brother keeps hanging around the people that treat him badly. She can't keep an eye on Sayo all day long. By the time something happens, it'll be too late. Namgyo can't help but think out loud. Her concern for her brother is immense, to the point Yunsu tries to calm her down. However, at that moment, Cha suddenly appears behind her, and overhearing part of their conversation asks, "Too late for what?" Cha Gyeol's sudden appearance startles Namgyo, making her stumble before Gyeol catches her. He asks her about her crutches before Gyeol suddenly remembers about her brother telling her not to forget them as she stormed out of the sick bay. However, Gyeol insists it's fine since she's feeling better anyway. But Yunsu interrupts their conversation, asking about the strange boy that just interrupted their conversation. Unfortunately, Namgyo hesitates to give her an answer. She remembers the fateful day that she and Gyeol were together by the waterside and how she confessed to him. But she can't bring herself to tell Yunsu that Cha Gyeol is her boyfriend or even say that they're dating. Lucky for her, Gyeol intervenes by saving their just acquaintances. However, Yunsu isn't convinced, neither is she pleased with Cha Gyeol's presence. Particularly, she notices Gyeol's downcast expression. Yunsu asks Cha Gyeol to leave since she and Namgyo are having a conversation. Strangely enough, Gyeol obliges very easily. But not before brushing Gyeol's hair and saying he'll see her later. After his departure, Yunsu doesn't hold back and makes her displeasure with Cha Gyeol's unruly appearance known to Gyeol. She also advises Namgyo to stop hanging out with strange people like him. Despite initially not wanting to, Namgyo also thinks Gyeol is acting strange. She can't tell if he's upset or not, because after all, she technically just covered up their relationship in front of Yunsu. Seeing this is the case, Namgyo decides to end her conversation with Yunsu and head to the rooftop to see Gyeol. She turns down Yunsu's offer to accompany her as well. We see Cha Gyeol on the rooftop, reminiscing about the events that just transpired. He appears to jokingly say, "If I had known this would happen, I would have lived a better life and gotten less piercings." Immediately, Namgyo gets to the rooftop and sees Gyeol. She apologizes for not telling Yunsu about their relationship. However, Gyeol tells her not to worry about it. But when she asks if he is angry, Gyeol delivers a shocking response. He says that it's true they're not dating. He pretends not to remember anything about the day they made their feelings known to each other, much to Namgyo's astonishment. Gyeol decides to talk about her brother instead, telling Cha Gyeol that someone hurt him badly again. Gyeol says that he will have a word with the people that wronged Namseo, but Namgyo can't believe this guy. She remembers Cha Gyeol saying he helped Namseo and that he has nothing to do with the guys making trouble with him. Shockingly, Gyeol tells her that she has completely misinterpreted all his actions up until now. Notwithstanding, he says he will help take care of her brother's bullies. But this doesn't comfort Namgyo at all. She is completely heartbroken. It seems that her impression of Cha Gyeol is completely different from how he really is. Namgyo is at home, crying on her bed. She now knows that Cha Gyeol was only playing with her. He probably doesn't see her in a romantic way at all. So much for believing in a bad boy with a good heart, because it seems Cha Gyeol definitely isn't one. As Namgyo vents her anger out on her pillow, she hears someone walking in the house. It's Namgyo and Namseo's mother, and she's looking for both of them. After an unsuccessful search for Seo in his room, she goes to Gyeo's room. Namgyo quickly pretends to rest her bed on her pillow as her mother enters the room. She asks if Gyeol knows where Namseo is, which makes Gyeol lie about not knowing his whereabouts. Furthermore, Namgyo's mom notices how downcast she is and asks her what the matter is. "Does your leg hurt?" she asks. However, Gyeol says that isn't the reason why she's sad. Her mom continues to probe, saying, "I think there's something going on. Why are you suddenly acting like a baby?" Namgyo finally confesses that it is because she is heartbroken about everything happening in her life. She feels so stupid for ruining Taekwondo career this year because of her injury. She also feels bad about not being able to take care of her brother, Namseo. And though she doesn't confess it, it's clear she feels awful about being played by Cha Gyeol as well. "Is that what you think?" her mom answers in reply. It's clear that she certainly doesn't think the same way Namgyo does about herself. The woman consoles her daughter, telling her everything will be fine. "Time will heal everything," she adds. However, as we see, Namgyo doesn't quite understand the meaning of her mother's words. Her first heartbreak at the hands of Gyeol isn't something easy to swallow. After confessing to each other, how can Gyeol just say they're nothing? It certainly isn't something easy to get over. We see Cha Gyeol walking to an open rooftop where there are some boys hanging out. He makes his presence known by banging the door open with a kick of his legs. His actions are enough to rattle the boys, who are frightened, thinking instead that Woojin's father came to check on them. In fact, Cha Gyeol's presence is a surprise as they didn't believe he would make it. It seems Namseo is also there, passed out on the floor from taking things he shouldn't be taking. "Yeah, I wasn't going to come, but someone kept pestering me," says Cha Gyeol, approaching the dazed Woojin. Woojin is shocked by his statement because, in his words, Cha Gyeol kept ignoring all his calls. "Here for him?" Woojin asks, looking at the unconscious Namseo. Before Cha Gyeol can reply, Woojin asks if it is Namgyo that asked Gyeol to check up on Namsayo. The other guys can't believe what Woojin is saying. Why would Gyeol do that in the first place, right? However, Woojin is sure of what he's saying. He can't even hold his laugh as he reveals to Gyeol that he knows he is dating Namgyo. The other guys can't believe it, but Woojin is very sure of what he's saying. He keeps saying provocative words at Gyeol until the guy suddenly has enough and grabs his hair. "Keep going, Woojin," Gyeol says, staring him down. "Speak now, I'm listening, Woojin," says Gyeol, staring Woojin down while gripping his hair. Woojin and the other boys' protests fall on deaf ears as Gyeol drags him over to a wall. Gyeol reminds Park Woojin about what he discussed concerning Namgyo. Doesn't Woojin remember him saying that he doesn't want Woojin messing with her? However, we discover that Park Woojin intentionally says all those things to see Cha Gyeol's reaction. "I haven't even started yet, and you're making such a fuss. Then how are you going to punish that punk?" Woojin says mockingly at Gyeol. Trying to get on Cha Gyeol's bad side? Yeah, that's definitely a bad move, and he shows Woojin exactly why. He's really trying to provoke Cha Gyeol on purpose, isn't he? "So I shouldn't let this go, right?" Gyeol asks Woojin. He is only restraining himself because of the other boys here with them. "So what?" asks Woojin, and he suddenly gets his answer as Gyeol drags his head forward. However, at the last moment, he stops as his phone starts to ring. Woojin can't help but think how lucky he is. If not for the call, would something bad have happened to him? Cha Gyeol's call seems to be urgent, but as he heads out, he tells two of the other boys to help him put the unconscious Namseo on his back. Despite their initial surprise, the boys do as he tells him, and they watch him carry the sleeping Namseo on his back as he leaves in a hurry. Meanwhile, the injured Park Woojin can't help but look at Gyeol as he leaves, still unable to believe his luck. It's morning as we see Namgyo sleeping on her bed. Actually, it seems she is having a dream. It's actually a recurring dream that she can't seem to get out of her head. Perhaps this is merely her desired scenario she wishes would become a reality. It is a dream of her and Cha Gyeol, looking so modestly dressed as they both walk down the side of the road, smiling happily. That is until Namgyo's heel breaks, leaving her in tears. However, Cha Gyeol, her Prince Charming, picks her up before they kiss. Such a cute and happy scene, isn't it? But as Namgyo wakes up, she snaps herself out of her illusions. Indeed, dreams seem to contradict reality, don't they? Namgyo says, looking out the window. 3 days have passed since her heartbreak at the hands of Cha Gyeol. Honestly, Geo doesn't want to have dreams of a happiness involving Cha Gyeol if reality is far from that. She doesn't want her dreams to give her false hope. Meanwhile, at the open rooftop where Cha Gyeol picked up Namsayo, a lot of guys are gathered, and the discussion is about none other than Park Woojin. Of course it is. It seems Woojin has become somewhat of a laughingstock among the guys. What with the way Gyeol put him in his place the other day. No wonder Woojin doesn't come to their gathering place anymore. But that's not all the boys are talking about. They also talk about the cause of the altercation between Cha Gyeol and Park Woojin. Clearly, they know it involves Cha Gyeol defending Namsayo. However, it seems the two boys that witnessed the altercation have also spread rumors regarding why Gyeol beat up Woojin. Now, all the boys know it is because of Namgyo, who, due to Woojin, they think is Cha Gyeol's girlfriend. However, as the boys continue their gossip, something says something from behind them. "Continue speaking," the person says. And guess who this is? Why, it's none other than Park Woojin. Back at school, we see Yunsu looking out from a window. She suddenly sees Namgyo walking by and calls out to her. "Namgyo, where are you going?" she asks. Gyo replies that she's going for rehabilitation. Yunsu is curious to know if she will head home from there. However, Namgyo says she will still come to school. But just as she decides to leave, Gyo accidentally drops her purse. Yunsu notices and tries to call out to her, but Namgyo doesn't hear her at all, much to her chagrin. Now she has to go pick up the purse before someone tries to snatch it. Meanwhile, with Namgyo, we see that she's actually in deep thought. Since her breakup with Cha Gyeol, it seems other things in her life have been going well for some strange reason. Her injured leg is getting better. Also with Namsayo, it seems something very interesting happened. Just the day before, as both Namgyo and Namsayo sit for breakfast, Geo asks about the whereabouts of their mother. Sayo confirms that she's gone to work. But why so early? Even more peculiar for Namgyo to handle is the fact Namsayo woke up so early to make breakfast for her. That's just not like him at all. After some nervy exchanges and silence between them, Namgyo runs out of patience with her younger brother. He clearly has something he wants to say, so why isn't he spilling it out already? I won't keep in touch with those guys from now on, Namsayo suddenly says, taking Geo by surprise. However, she isn't completely convinced. Isn't it the other day that Namsayo hung out with them and was found sleeping before the front door of their house? She can't understand how Sayo got him that day. Nonetheless, Namsayo tries to convince his sister that he is really going to change. Going forward, he isn't going to hang out with those guys at the rooftop anymore. Namgyo can't believe her luck as of this moment. It seems all the things making her worry deeply are getting resolved fairly easily. All except one thing, that is. It's clear that Geo is still hung up on Cha Gyeol. She can't believe she fell for Gyeol's tricks. However, there seems to be trouble on the way. Namgyo evades just in time before someone hits a bat right where her injured leg was a few moments ago. We see that the culprit is actually Park Woojin. What is he trying to do? Meanwhile, some guys at the rooftop hangout spot are watching Woojin and Geo below them. Even they can't believe what he's doing. In fact, all the guys are trying to have as little involvement as possible with whatever wretched scheme Woojin is planning. Down below, we see that Namgyo's sudden movement to dodge the bat actually makes her injured leg hurt. Woojin is impressed that she is able to dodge the bat. So you are even able to dodge this, huh? Namgyo is stunned by Woojin's sudden confrontation. It's very obvious that the bat swing was very intentional and full of ill intent. Does this guy really want to hurt her that bad? Geo is confused as to why Woojin is angry at her when he's the one that hurt her younger brother, Namsayo. Why is he confronting her anyway? She isn't afraid to throw this question at Woojin but completely disregards her words. How noisy! Just be quiet, Woojin exclaims, swinging his bat to the ground again. Once again, we see that Namgyo barely manages to dodge the attack. Ah, I'm so furious, yells Woojin, in frustration from his miss. I told you to stay still. However, Namgyo obviously can't do that. With the way Park Woojin keeps swinging the bat dangerously, she has to keep digging. This is the crazy situation Namgyo finds herself in. Is Woojin really out for her? She thinks to run away, preferably somewhere crowded. However, it seems that Woojin already knows what she's thinking as well. Instead of running away, Woojin tries to persuade Namgyo to hit him. Honestly, the thought does dwell in Geo's mind, but she remembers Yunsu's words from before. Does she really want to hit Woojin at the cost of her taekwondo career? Are you irritated? Woojin suddenly asks Namgyo. Before she can answer, he gives a reply. Me too. You should have chosen your boyfriend more carefully. Confused, Namgyo asks who Woojin is talking about. He clarifies that he's talking about Cha Gyeol, who is also the reason why he looks so beat up. But Namgyo says that she and Cha Gyeol are no more than strangers. In fact, if it doesn't involve Namsayo, she has no business with Woojin. But the boy is adamant about his belief. He seems to think that both Cha Gyeol and Namgyo are still in a relationship, even as Geo affirms it's not the case. Isn't Gyeol the one that said there's nothing between them? No, Namgyo, you need to focus. She has to remember the precarious situation she's in. She's considering trying to use her taekwondo skills to disarm Woojin. It's risky, but does she really have any other options? Fortunately, she doesn't have to do anything because at that moment, someone speaks from behind her, calling Park Woojin by name. It's none other than Cha Gyeol. Cha Gyeol, says Namgyo in a state of bewilderment. It is indeed the guy that broke her heart just a few days ago. But why is he here? We get our answer as he swiftly engages Park Woojin in a fight. As the battle unravels, Cha Gyeol begins to take considerable damage from Woojin's bat. Geo can't help but think she's experiencing some sort of deja vu. What's worse is the battle is tilting in Woojin's favor as he continues to seriously hurt Cha Gyeol. Namgyo can't bear it anymore, and so she decides to take matters into her own hands. She delivers a powerful kick to Woojin's head that rams him into a wall. Fear suddenly takes over Namgyo as we discover she accidentally knocks him unconscious. But is the damage to Woojin very severe? What's with the grim look on Cha Gyeol's face? It seems she has knocked Woojin totally unconscious. "Why did you interfere?" exclaims Gyeol, facing the visibly shaken Namgyo. She can't help but ask if Woojin is really badly hurt from her intervention. At first, Cha Gyeol doesn't answer her, until she keeps pestering. Fortunately for Geo, it seems that Woojin is truly just unconscious. "I'm sorry I shouted at you," says Cha Gyeol, embracing Namgyo tenderly. He tells her that he will take care of everything, but wants her to leave the area immediately. However, Geo isn't willing to do that. Cha Gyeol suddenly pulls back from her, looking her in the eyes. "Geo, listen, you've never been to this spot," says Cha Gyeol. Any attempt of further protest from Namgyo is suddenly interrupted by Gyeol. "Take her away," he says. We discover that Yunsu is standing behind Namgyo. Cha Gyeol says that he entrusts Geo to Yunsu, pushing the girl lightly in the back towards Yunsu. As she is taken away by Yunsu, Namgyo tries to reason with her fellow Taekwondo athlete. However, Yunsu doesn't let her say many words before putting a hand over her mouth. "Just pretend like you don't know anything. Put all the blame on him," says Yunsu. "Don't do anything. We don't know anything." Despite not wanting to run away, Namgyo knows that Gyeol and Yunsu are doing this for her own good. This thought alone is enough to make tears fall from her eyes at Gyeol's selfless act. Like Yunsu says, they have no business being here anymore. Namgyo heads to the rehabilitation center, where the doctor scolds her for the way she is taking care of her injured leg. Fortunately, he seems to think the strain on her leg is due to exercise. Imagine how the doctor will feel if he discovers the real reason. Thankfully for Namgyo, it isn't a big issue. Otherwise, she would have to go for surgery. Geo apologizes for her disobedience. Or is she really apologizing only for that? In fact, we see that Namgyo is feeling remorseful for her actions. She goes to a familiar spot near the rehabilitation center, a bench where she and Cha Gyeol used to hang together, holding an unopened beverage can. The realization is slowly sinking in that they are no longer a couple. Furthermore, Namgyo can't believe she let the pressure get to her head so much that she abused her ability as a Taekwondo athlete. Even if Woojin is a terrible person, she has no right to inflict harm to him with her Taekwondo skills. What's worse is now, everything is being blamed on the guy she likes. And here she is, not saying a thing and letting everything happen. Namgyo's conversation with Yunsu after the altercation with Woojin reveals that Yunsu has to persuade her not to say anything about the incident for both their sakes. She doesn't want Namgyo to ruin her Taekwondo career. However, we see that Geo thinks about her actions as nothing more than cowardice. Perhaps, in her words, that is why Cha Gyeol left her alone. Because I smell like trash. It seems Namgyo is really falling into a state of depression. "What trash?" asks Cha Gyeol, appearing out of nowhere. He really needs to stop doing that. With a smile on his face, Gyeol approaches Namgyo. "Why are you saying such an unpleasant thing to yourself?" he asks, facing her. Cha Gyeol's sudden arrival is a surprise to Namgyo. As he sits down beside her, Geo can't help but ask why what he's doing here. However, Gyeol informs her that Park Woojin has also been hospitalized at this same clinic, while suddenly taking the can she's holding out of her hand. Out of concern, Namgyo asks about the boy's well-being. Though he is the one that attempted to harm her, we see that Geo is hopeful that he hasn't suffered a severe injury because of her. After making a few jokes, Cha Gyeol informs her that Woojin hasn't said anything about her involvement in his injury, possibly out of embarrassment. He doesn't want anyone to know he is in this condition after a one-hit knockdown by Namgyo. Fortunately, that means that Namgyo is all in the clear. She isn't going to suffer any negative backlash from the incident. But we see that Geo is filled with remorse. "I'm sorry," says Namgyo, unable to look Cha Gyeol in the eye. But Cha Gyeol responds by saying, "Sorry for what?" For Gyeol, if not for Namgyo's intervention, it's very possible that he would be the one being hospitalized instead. Namgyo asks about his forehead that suffered some damage in the altercation with Park Woojin. But as Cha Gyeol wants to touch the injury, Namgyo stops him. They share a brief moment, staring each other in the eye before Namgyo advises Gyeol not to touch his injury. After all, he can accidentally make the injury worse by randomly pressing his forehead. But Gyeol merely disregards it as a small scratch. What hurts him more is that he can't add a piercing to his eyebrow anymore. He believes he will look good with an eyebrow piercing, insinuating that Gyeol shares a similar opinion. "When did I say that?" retorts the flustered Namgyo. With a chuckle, Cha Gyeol replies, "I know, even though you haven't said it." However, we see that Namgyo is very much disturbed by Cha Gyeol's light tone of speech. It's almost as if he's acting this way in order to prevent her from finding out about something. "How will the school punish you?" Gyeol decides to ask, without beating about the bush. Cha Gyeol casually says he will most likely be expelled. This shocking revelation isn't helped by how casually Gyeol tries to relay the matter. Namgyo can't help but feel stupid and shameful for the way things are turning out. "Honestly, what are you doing?" Gyeol can't help but ask. Why is Cha Gyeol throwing away his future just to help her? Why is he going out of his way to protect her when she never asked for his assistance? Gyeol doesn't understand her sudden reaction, but Namgyo clarifies. "You said there's nothing between us. Then why are you protecting me like this?" Cha Gyeol's reply is a stunning one. "How can there be nothing between us?" he says. He believes they're in a relationship of mutual affection. Besides, he isn't going to forget that Namgyo actually saved him. He reiterates that if Gyeol hadn't been bold enough to intervene, he might be the one hospitalized and may even be in a worse condition than Woojin. But Namgyo isn't having any of it. She isn't going to be swayed by Cha Gyeol's sweet words, not this time. Gyeol says she won't confess about the altercation between her and Woojin. Isn't that what Gyeol wants her to do? Furthermore, she insists that her silence is going to result in his probable expulsion from school. Gyeol feels she's having a hand in ruining Gyeol's life. However, it's clear that Cha Gyeol doesn't share the same opinion. He clearly doesn't believe his life is ruined just because of an expulsion. But Namgyo knows that Gyeol only has his grandmother as a family member he can count on. How isn't his life ruined? Surprisingly, Cha Gyeol concedes that his life may actually be ruined. Despite Namgyo repeating that she isn't going to let him make her feel pity or guilt for him, Gyeol says it's fine. "Live like this," he says. "Just pretend like you didn't see anything." This is Gyeol's request for Namgyo, but on the premise that she will never use her taekwondo skills to hit anyone again. Gyeol initially thinks he is trying to mock her until he says it again. Cha Gyeol wants her to keep going. "Otherwise, my life would be ruined for nothing," he says, smiling as he caresses her face with his finger. After Cha Gyeol tells Namgyo to make good of his sacrifice, he stands up to leave. He's taking the canned beverage gotten from Gyeol with him. "I will consider this a present from you to me." These are Cha Gyeol's final words to her before he departs. However, for Namgyo, this is another sad moment. She wishes they never crossed paths if this is going to be how things end. Perhaps if their paths never crossed, then maybe Cha Gyeol wouldn't need to sacrifice his future for her sake. Perhaps Namgyo won't feel as hurt about everything as she does now. Perhaps Cha Gyeol won't be disappointed with how cowardly she is. We see that it's not long after that day that Cha Gyeol's whereabouts suddenly become unknown. It's something that Namgyo confirms by herself, as she even goes to Cha Gyeol's house to visit him. We see that she manages to get his house address by asking the student records office of the school. Namgyo even goes as far as lying about borrowing some things from Cha Gyeol to get his house address from the student records keeper. Unfortunately, he isn't even at home. "Where are you?" asks the saddened Namgyo, leaning on the front door of Gyeol's apartment. Eventually, one of Gyeol's neighbors spots her and asks if she is a friend of his. Of course, Namgyo decides to play along with the woman's preconceived notion. Didn't their relationship end on a very sour note, though? "Cha Gyeol has moved. Don't you know that?" says the neighbor. This is a statement that shocks Namgyo. Cha Gyeol has moved? What's more shocking is that his sudden change of location isn't without reason. Apparently, his grandmother has passed away, the only family Cha Gyeol could depend on. The neighbor seems very appalled that Namgyo doesn't know about the devastating news. How could someone claiming to be his friend not know about such a major event that happened to him? If you're friends, then you have his number, right? Don't just stand here, try calling him, says the neighbor. Namgyo says she will and announces her departure. But unfortunately, as she tries to call Cha Gyeol, she doesn't get good news at all. The number you dialed doesn't exist. Her phone announces in the empty hall. Namgyo can't contact Cha Gyeol, and what's worse is she just realizes what possibly happened the day Gyeol took the blame for her altercation with Woojin. She remembers the clothes Cha Gyeol wore that day. How could she not have known that was the day his grandmother passed away? As Gyeol leaves Cha Gyeol's apartment building, we see that it's raining heavily. As she walks in the rain, Namgyo encounters a certain man just before the building. She remembers who this is. She has run into him before, just across the street with Cha Gyeol. However, the man clarifies that he isn't a stranger. His name is Gu Woon-ho, and he is a police officer. Have you tried to look for Cha Gyeol? The man asks out of nowhere. Namgyo says yes, and that she hears that he is relocated. However, we see that Gyeol's emotions finally overwhelm her. Why didn't Cha Gyeol tell her about any of these things? At least she could have given him a proper farewell. But the truth is, she isn't sure what she would do if given the chance. Uncle, I don't find Cha Gyeol anywhere, Namgyo says, breaking down in tears before Gu Woon-ho. Truly, we see that Gyeol is devastated about losing the boy she likes without having a fighting chance. We see a television screen with an older woman with similar hair to Namgyo getting all the attention. This woman is a Taekwondo athlete, but is she really? With the number of television programs and social media variety shows she's on, this woman is closer to being a celebrity. She's the talk of the town as well, as we see two of her fans talking about her on the road. However, a woman wearing a black cap passes them by, looking similar to the woman they're talking about. This woman is actually a 29-year-old Namgyo. As Namgyo enters a restaurant, she goes to the receptionist who welcomes her, asking how many people she's bringing in. However, Namgyo makes it clear that she actually has a friend waiting for her inside. It seems even the receptionist actually knows who Namgyo is. Anyway, we see someone sitting at a table call out to Gyeol as she makes her way in. It turns out to be none other than Yunsu. These two are still friends after such a long time. Isn't that nice? Yunsu talks about her Taekwondo superstar friend's appearance, but Gyeol makes it clear that she's just coming from a shoot this morning. How busy, says Yunsu. I don't know if you're an athlete now or a celebrity. Namgyo says this isn't the first time she's heard that either. But it's not like she has a choice, given that she's recently retired. Therefore, any penny she gets from ads and television broadcasts are significant for her. Namgyo actually has an offer from a Taekwondo trainer to be their successor and teach the art to the next generation. But we see that she has little interest in that since she's retired, though Yunsu says she would like Gyeol to perform as an athlete for a few more years. Nonetheless, Namgyo doesn't want to come out of retirement. After all, she has had such a successful career in Taekwondo. First in the Asian Championship, first in the World Championship, before winning a bronze at her first Olympics. She is even given the title of National Filial Piety for crying like talking about her deceased father during an interview. That title sounds ridiculous to Namgyo, but regardless, she's gotten some good ad jobs due to it, so who's complaining? Although we see she actually gets some criticism for her seemingly prioritizing her recognition over her athletic career. Nevertheless, her career reaches a new peak. Just last year, she finally fulfills her dream of winning an Olympic gold medal. However, after the initial excitement, we see that Namgyo is filled with a strange feeling of emptiness, and that emptiness has been with her ever since. That moment of achieving everything you ever wanted is finally here for Gyeol. All her dreams since high school came to fruition, but she still feels something is missing. Why are you making that face again? Are you thinking about him? Asks Yunsu, concerned for her friend. But Namgyo can't answer her. She doesn't have the right to think about someone that sacrificed his future for her own. Namgyo knows that her high school dreams are now a reality, but something is still missing. The person in her dreams isn't her. and for a long time she used to think that the person that she would celebrate all her success with would be Cha Gyeol. Guess Namgyo really hasn't gotten over him, has she? She still dreams about Cha Gyeol. She still misses Cha Gyeol. All that is very clear. How can she even forget about him? If not for Cha Gyeol, Namgyo doubts she'll be as successful as she is today. As they order another round of food and drinks, Namgyo and Yunsu talk about other things, like Moon Gi-sung, who is now an MMA fighter, but their conversation starts to make Namgyo feel sad and lonely. It isn't long before she decides to part ways with Yunsu. Unsu advises her to take a cab, but Gyo declines. "I didn't exercise today, so I'll walk," she says, bidding her friend farewell. As Namgyo heads to her home, she starts to experience a splitting headache. Has she accidentally taken too many drinks, or is she that exhausted? At that moment, however, Gyo suddenly hears a loud scream that stops her in her steps. Namgyo wants to be sure her senses aren't playing a trick on her. Is that really the voice of someone screaming? Her suspicions are confirmed when the person starts to shout. "Who are you?" "Let go of me," exclaims the frightened person. "Get your hands off. Why are you so persistent?" We see that Namgyo, despite her slightly affected state of mind, the drinks, isn't going to shy away from someone screaming for help. Unsurprisingly, it is a classic robbery case, purse snatching. However, this purse-snatching thief is very persistent as he drags the purse with the poor woman doing her best to keep hold of her possession. "Get your hands off her," yells Namgyo. Luckily, she arrives just in time before the thief can successfully steal the bag. Upon seeing he might be caught, the purse snatcher tries to flee. After making sure the woman is fine, Namgyo tries to follow after the thief. However, it seems that her tipsy state is making it hard to keep up. Nonetheless, with perseverance and tenacity, Gyo does manage to catch up to him, forcing him into a dead end. Seeing no other choice, the thief decides to fight Namgyo. However, we see that Gyo is very reluctant to engage him in battle. She still remembers the last time that happened, and Cha Gyeol had to save her from getting in trouble. But as the thief continues to annoy her, Gyo decides not to hold back any longer. With a swift attack, she managed to land a strong hit that decapitated his arm. But the Taekwondo superstar doesn't stop there. She continues to hit several weak points until she completely restrains the thief to the point he can no longer move. A successful face-off for a Taekwondo genius. Now, the only decision she has to make is whether to take this crook to the police herself, since she really wants to sleep early today. But at that moment, an eerily familiar voice starts to speak to Gyo. "You haven't changed, have you, Gyo? I told you not to beat people up anymore, right?" It is the voice of a man she has been longing to see for 10 years. As she turns, Namgyo sees Cha Gyeol in the flesh, staring down at her from the stairs of a building. She's in utter disbelief upon seeing him again after so long. Is this a hallucination or something? "Cha Gyeol," says Namgyo, still in a state of disbelief at the sight of the man she has been longing to see for years. The mere sight of him is even for her legs to lose strength as she falls to her knees. Cha Gyeol manages a smile. "Is it really you, Cha Gyeol? How have you been all this while?" Namgyo can't help but ask. However, their reunion is short-lived as someone from behind Cha Gyeol suddenly calls out, "Boss." Apparently, it seems Gyeol is getting ready to go somewhere. He leaves without even saying farewell to Namgyo. Even as the police arrive at the scene, we see that Namgyo's thoughts are only about Cha Gyeol. How can he just come back into her life so suddenly? Where has he been all these years? The next day, we see Namgyo eating with Gu Woon-ho, the police officer that knows Cha Gyeol. It turns out that since Gyeol's sudden disappearance 10 years ago, Gyo and this officer have become friends. Although Gu Woon seems to be a very picky eater. Even despite the fact that Gyo has brought him to a nice cafe, he still has a lot of complaints about the food. Gyo still remembers the officer taking her to a small cafe to cheer her up after the discovery of Cha Gyeol's sudden disappearance. She remembers how nervous he looked when ordering a cream cake for her that day. How hilarious that it is that moment that their friendship began to blossom. But as they're having a casual discussion, Namgyo decides to drop the egg. "I met Cha Gyeol." Her words stun Gu Woon-ho so much that he nearly chokes on his cake. He asks Gyeol questions to make sure she isn't just seeing things. But Namgyo knows she's not mistaken, especially since he is the one that called out to her. "Are you saying that he called you first?" asked Woonho, still obviously doubting her words. "Yes, but he was with someone that seems quite dangerous," answers Gyeol. "He even called Cha Gyeol his boss." Shockingly, Namgyo discovers that Gu Woonho actually knows everything she's talking about. In fact, the officer has known Gyeol's whereabouts for a long time and didn't even bother to tell her. Apparently, meeting Gyeol isn't going to be a pleasant encounter for Namgyo. We discover that Gyeol actually runs a company called Global Deal that sells imported electronic products and more recently has started to invest in athletes. Although this company seems to be a legal entity, Gu Woonho informs Gyeol that it has a lot of shady activities going on behind the scenes. However, Gyeol doesn't care a lot for all these things. She can't believe that all this time, Woonho has been in contact with Cha Gyeol and kept her out of the loop. While thinking on this new revelation outside the restaurant, Gyeol feels she owes Cha Gyeol a favor for saving her from ruining her life, so she should be allowed to hear from him once to properly give her thanks, right? But is that really the only reason? Deep down, Namgyo knows she is still in love with Cha Gyeol. However, at that moment, she suddenly receives a call, but from who? "Gyeol," the surprise caller says with a hint of concern. It is none other than Moon Gi-sung, who gets a light scolding from Namgyo. She reminds him that she doesn't like being called that way. And surprise, surprise, it's because that nickname reminds her of Cha Gyeol. However, Gyeol doesn't tell this to Moon Gi-sung. She's also curious to know why Gi-sung is calling her since it's been some time since they last spoke to one another. Furthermore, he wants to take Namgyo out to eat if she's up for it. Somehow, Moon Gi-sung gets away with calling her unemployed without getting her angry. Moon Gi-sung insists he wants to take Namgyo out for dinner and asks for her current location. Gyeol replies by simply stating she's outside, but in truth she is at the same place she last saw Cha Gyeol after so many years. She thinks that perhaps if she waits long enough she will see him again. This woman is hopeless, isn't she? Gyeol informs Moon Gi-sung that she won't be staying long if he plans to actually take her out for dinner. Her longtime friend has no qualms with that, as he merely intends to grab a bite and be on his way back to his house. However, in his curiosity, he doesn't fail to ask if she's busy or has an appointment. Gyeol can't possibly ring herself to tell Moon Gi-sung that she's busy stalking Cha Gyeol, so she just says she's waiting for something. Fortunately, Gi-sung doesn't probe further and sends her the address of the eatery. Upon getting there, Gyeol is unable to eat, despite Moon Gi-sung ordering grilled intestines, a dish Gyeol claims to love. This is simply because Namgyo doesn't have an appetite. Her head is only focused on the likelihood of seeing Cha Gyeol later. She doesn't want to smell like grilled intestines upon seeing him later on. However, it's then that Gyeol notices a difference in Moon Gi-sung's stature. "You seem bigger than before," she says, staring. Gi-sung doesn't deny it, revealing that merely thinking of losing weight makes him feel tired. Gyeol remembers that he still has to lose about 10 kilograms of weight. This is one of the sacrifices Moon Gi-sung constantly has to make for his career. Even Namgyo can't help but pity him, because she also has experience with losing weight for her taekwondo career. However, their conversation is interrupted by the owner of the eatery, who comes to their table upon noticing Namgyo. Who would have thought that this woman's daughter is a former opponent of Namgyo during her competitive days? Just a year ago, in fact. The woman really seems to take a huge liking to Namgyo, despite knowing that Gyeol actually beat her daughter in a taekwondo match. Furthermore, she mistakes Moon Gi-sung as Namgyo's rumored volleyball boyfriend. What boyfriend? Gyeol is so shocked by this revelation and is quick to deny it. Upon being cleared of her presumptions, the eatery owner apologizes and walks away from their table, but not before asking Namgyo for an autograph. What a cheeky old lady. Unfortunately, it's revealed that Namgyo actually used to date a professional volleyball player. His name is Bae Chan-ho. He's someone that Gyeol doesn't like talking about. It's clear that her time together with Bae Chan-ho did not end well. What's more is that Moon Gi-sung is surprisingly even more upset about hearing his name than Namgyo herself for the things the volleyball player did to her. Meanwhile, in Cha Gyeol's office, one of his employees rushes in to give him some files he's been looking for. It's revealed to be a file containing personal information about Bae Chan-ho, the same volleyball player that is Namgyo's ex-boyfriend. But why is Gyeol looking into him? Back at the eatery, Namgyo is left surprised by Moon Gi-sung's outburst. Is he really so upset about Bae Chan-ho's actions? However, for Namgyo, it's clear that she doesn't take anything that Bae Chan-ho did to heart. In fact, it is revealed that the reason why Namgyo actually started dating Bae Chan-ho is because of how he reminds her of Cha Gyeol. It's clear to see that Gyeol is crazy about Gyeol, isn't it? Maybe that's why their relationship didn't last long either. I like you. What about you? Namgyo catches Bae Chan-ho saying this to another girl. Can you believe this guy said the same words he used to ask Gyeol out to this other girl? Having witnessed this with her two eyes, Gyeol immediately breaks up with him because of that. But everything about her brief relationship with Chan-ho, even the last words Bae Chan says to her, reminds Namgyo of Cha Gyeol. After finishing their meal, Namgyo and Moon Gi-sung leave the eatery. Gyeol's childhood friend apologizes to her about bringing up the topic of Bae Chan-ho, but Gyeol tells him not to worry. In fact, she feels a bit guilty about it. Perhaps she wasn't good enough for Bae Chan-ho. However, Moon Gi-sung suddenly reminds Namgyo of a promise she made in their childhood days. At that time, you said something like this, says Moon Gi-sung, that if we both have no partner, then the both of us should get married. His ridiculous statement earns him a kick in the leg from Namgyo. That's definitely going to leave a mark. Furthermore, Moon Gi-sung tells Gyeol that he is old and alone before bidding her good night and a safe trip home. But what do these words mean anyway? Could it be that Moon Gi-sung is trying to tell Gyeol about his true feelings for her? Gyeol knows that they haven't crossed the line. She has dated Bae Chan-ho, who she didn't really like. But maybe things will be different if she dates a longtime friend. Definitely, she can see that happening. She and Moon Gi-sung dating if things continue like this. However, that would only be the case if she didn't see Cha Gyeol that particular day. On her way home, the retired Taekwondo star can't help but think about Gi-sung's words. Somehow, she believes that her actions are responsible for him thinking of her in a different way. Perhaps Namgyo unknowingly gave him hope that they can be more than just friends. For now, she intends to avoid meeting him in private. Gyeol can't help but feel guilty for these turn of events. She feels like she's been so self-centered all this while. Coincidentally, on her way home, Gyeol stumbles upon two dangerous-looking men that also seem to recognize her. "You look familiar," one of the men says. Back with Cha Gyeol, the man is sleeping in his office when he suddenly hears a knock on his door. It's one of the men that confronted Namgyo just some moments ago. "Boss, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's someone looking for you." Gyeol tells the guard to leave, commanding that no one should be let into his office. However, the guard informs him that the person that wants to see him is very famous. With a glance behind the guard, Cha Gyeol sees that it is none other than Namgyo. Cha Gyeol quickly removes the file he has of Bae Chan-ho from his desk before confronting Gyeol. Just from a quick interaction, Gyeol can tell that it's still the same Cha Gyeol she knew 10 years ago. These two ex-lovers finally see face to face after so long. They have a lot of catching up to do, don't they? "Didn't you say you want to see me?" asks Cha Gyeol with a smug look on his face. He really hasn't changed after all this while. Namgyo is so nervous she can't even form a reply or move as he stands from his seat to approach her. She thinks he even looks taller than back when they were in school together. But surprisingly, Cha Gyeol suddenly grabs her by the shoulder, gently guiding her towards the exit. Gyeol tells her to go home because he's busy. This man is so shameless. She literally saw him sleeping the moment she came into the room. Nevertheless, Namgyo is desperate to see him. After all, she has been longing to see this man again after a decade. "I'm sorry for coming without telling you in advance," Gyeol yells as Cha Gyeol nudges her to the exit. "But I don't have your phone number, so I had to come." Her words are enough to make Gyeol stop in his tracks. He tells her that he has already given her a sign before, but she is so insensitive. A flashback reveals that during Cha Gyeol and Namjeo's first encounter after 10 years, Gyeol actually makes a gesture for her to keep quiet. If they say you have connections with some shady people, who will be the one in trouble? Cha Gyeol tells the celebrity athlete. He makes it clear to Namjeo that he is saying these things out of his concern for her. That's why he wants her to leave immediately. But surprisingly, Namjeo comes up with an abrupt reply. She wants them to see in secret. Cha Gyeol finds it hard to reject her idea at first, but still wants her to leave. However, in a moment of quick thinking, Geo comes up with the idea that she wants to borrow money from Cha Gyeol's company. It's one of his company's services after all. However, after much contemplating, Gyeol still decides to turn her idea down, guiding her outside before shutting the door. He does hand her some money, though. Disappointed, Namjeo heads to the showers as soon as she gets home. She can't help but think that maybe Cha Gyeol has moved on from her. At the same time, this hopelessly in love woman is clinging on to the hope that at least Cha Gyeol missed her just a bit. Meanwhile, we see Yunsu in a white vehicle with someone else. She looks like she doesn't even want to be here. Do we really have to meet like this just to talk? Yunsu asks. The person she's talking to replies to her, saying, if someone says they want to meet you, then it's because they want to talk to you in person, Sister Yunsu. This person is none other than Bae Chan-ho. But why is he meeting up with Yo Eun-soo? Back at her apartment, the sleeping Namjeo finds herself in a strange dream involving Cha Gyeol, who looks very miserable. He is even holding white daisies and looks very mournful, not to talk about the bloodstains on his suit, almost like he got injured. The strange dream comes to an end with Cha Gyeol hugging Geo and trying to calm her by saying, "This is nothing special." Namjeo startles awake, completely perplexed by her dream. Ironic that she starts dreaming of Cha Gyeol again the night after seeing him. However, the sorry sight of him in her dream makes her very worried about him. Geo can't help but wonder about Cha Gyeol's current lifestyle. Officer Gu Won-ho did tell her that he works with a distribution company, but to her, Gyeol's company seems more like a loan company. In addition, she remembers Cha Gyeol declining her loan idea, saying he does do usury. In that case, what is he doing there? Namjeo feels as if there's a connection between all these facts she knows. It seems like Uncle Gu Won-ho lied to her. She can't tell anymore. What's more is that Namjeo can't help but feel guilty about Cha Gyeol's current way of life. If she didn't lash out at Woojin 10 years ago, maybe Cha Gyeol wouldn't need to save her. He definitely wouldn't have been expelled because of her. Over at Cha Gyeol's home, the man is sweating profusely with labored breaths as he stirs in his bed. He finally startles awake, staring about his bedroom. Again, Gyeol says between sighs, taking a stick to calm himself down. He can't help but think of Namjeo. Speaking of the celebrity athlete herself, Geo is getting her makeup done at a place. While this occurs, two women walk in, chattering about something they see on one of their phones. Athlete Namjeo. One of the women says, approaching Namjeo, "Can I ask you a question?" One of the women asks, approaching Geo, who asks what it's about. The woman shows her some news on her phone that leaves Namjeo completely speechless. It shows rumors swirling of Yo Eun-soo and Bae Chan-ho being in a relationship. There are even images of Eun-soo and Chan-ho meeting up. But this isn't the only scandal reported in the news article. There's also mention of a match-fixing scandal that Yo Eun-soo was involved in some time ago. What is this?" asks the shocked Namjeo, unable to make any sense of what she's seeing. After hearing about the shocking news regarding Bae Chan-ho and Yo Eun-soo, Namjeo tries to call her longtime friend and former Taekwondo teammate. After a few times of not being able to get through, Geo finally gets Eun-soo on the phone. "What? Are you going to talk about Bae Chan-ho too?" asks a clearly annoyed Yo Eun-soo over the phone. Namjeo can't contain her anxiety from hearing Eun-soo talking through the phone. She immediately asks if the rumors are true. Is Yo Eun-soo actually dating Bae Chan-ho? However, Eun-soo can't believe Namjeo is even asking her that sort of question. She confirms that Bae Chan-ho and her aren't officially dating or anything. They've only hung out together a few times. However, she does apologize for keeping her longtime friend in the dark about it. However, Namgyo seems to be bothered about another thing. She wants to know if Yunsu is alright concerning the other news that came up. It's regarding the scandal that led to Yunsu retiring, that she allegedly once tried to match fix. Yunsu tells Namgyo that she is fine and hangs up before Gyo can get another word in. Furthermore, Namgyo can't help but be worried about Yunsu. She is concerned about where their relationship will stand now that Yunsu is interacting with Bae Chan-ho. And there's also the match-fixing scandal that is resurfacing. Gyo remembers a time during the peak of their taekwondo careers when rumors came that Yunsu was trying to cheat her way into beating her. Of course, Yunsu tells her that she wouldn't never do such a thing. The two then have a wager that the loser of their match has to buy a meal for the winner. This is right before they actually have to face off against each other. As the match proceeds, Gyo gets a slight advantage in the match against Yunsu and leads the scoring board as the referee calls an end to the second round. This isn't to say Namgyo feels confident. In fact, she fears that Yunsu is more likely to defeat her in this match. However, they don't get to finish the match because Yunsu suddenly decides to withdraw from the match due to an injury. Namgyo is very displeased with her decision, challenging her about it afterwards. Notwithstanding, Yunsu makes it known to Namgyo that her trainer advised her to withdraw from the match if the injury was too severe to continue. Yunsu isn't bothered with her decision to withdraw. Neither is she bothered with the loss. She actually is the one to remind Namgyo of their little wager. That means she has to buy Gyo a meal. However, it turns out that not long after that match, the rumors of a match-fixing scandal involving Yunsu begins to spread. The case never gets resolved, and Yunsu decides to retire due to her injury. The ambiguity of the case, till this day, leaves Namgyo perplexed. It's clearly an uncomfortable topic for Yunsu, so she can't just bring it up. Nevertheless, Gyo chooses to trust Yunsu. At that moment, Gyo suddenly receives a message from a journalist called Jo Si-eun. At the same time, we see this same Jo Si-eun at the back of a car with none other than Bae Chan-ho, who tells her she did a good job. It's clear that the journalist feels nothing but disgust towards Bae Chan-ho, who she feels is still clinging onto Namgyo. However, it seems that she has no choice but to obey all of the volleyball players' wishes. What is Bae Chan-ho up to? A flashback to the time Namgyo got involved with a thief that stole a woman's purse reveals something very interesting. The woman whose purse was stolen is actually journalist Jo Si-eun. She's so grateful to Namgyo for her heroic actions as they both stand before a police station. In fact, upon Gyo's request, Jo Si-eun promises to take her to the best coffee shop to have a drink. It is only now, as Si-eun orders their coffee at the counter, that she remembers her first encounter with the journalist. However, the poor journalist encounters a problem. There's a problem with the POS machine, preventing the cashier from withdrawing the money from her account. What's more is that she doesn't even have any cash on her. They won't be able to have their drinks at this point. But guess who comes through? It's Namgyo again, who offers to pay for the drinks with the money Cha Gyeol gave her. Poor Jo Si-eun is so embarrassed by the situation, but Gyo waves it off. The money she spent isn't even hers, so there's no need for the embarrassed journalist to feel so grateful. The two women start to talk about other things, like the files Jo Si-eun planned to back up the last time they met outside the police station. Jo Si-eun says that these files contain a very hot case that she is still putting together. It's clear that Namgyo is amazed by how dedicated Si-eun is to her work. She thinks the woman is doing a fabulous job as a journalist. Unrestrained, Namgyo tells the journalist about Yunsu and the dating rumors regarding Bae Chan-ho. She also talks about how the media is bringing up her past scandal again. Jo Si-eun is visibly flustered by Namgyo's words, but why is that? Could she possibly be behind the rumors involving Yunsu? Back at Cha Gyeol's office, the man seems to be restless. He asks one of the men in the office with him what day it is. The man tells him that it is Friday. It seems like Cha Gyeol has reached his limit. He restlessly looks out the window, wondering why Namgyo hasn't contacted him. Having enough of just looking about idly, he decides to leave the office and go look for her. However, before he can leave, someone arrives who is here to see him. It is none other than Park Woo-jin. Namgyo and journalist Jo Si-eun leave the cafe after spending good time together. Before they depart from one another, Jo Si-eun reminds Gyo about the weather forecast, asking if she brought an umbrella because there will be rain. Unfortunately, Gyo isn't aware of the day's forecast and has no umbrella with her. Notwithstanding, they both go their separate ways. It's clear to see that Namgyo has a good impression of the journalist lady. As she boards the bus that will take her home, Namgyo wonders about Yunsu again. She really hopes nothing bad happens to her friend. At the same time, it starts to rain heavily. Gyo can't help but pity herself. Couldn't the rain have waited at least till she had gotten home? However, another thought comes to mind. She remembers the dream she had in the morning where it was raining, right before she saw Cha Gyeol with blood stains on his clothes. She immediately fears the worst for the man she is madly in love with. She remembers another dream she had before Cha Gyeol got in a fight because of her and was expelled from school. If things happen the same way again, does this mean Cha Gyeol could really be in trouble? Filled with anxiety, Namgyo orders the bus to stop. Meanwhile, over at Cha Gyeol's office, he is discussing something with Park Woo-jin. It's clear that nothing has changed between the two. Cha Gyeol still doesn't like Woo-jin at all, despite the latter trying his best to speak on cordial terms. However, Woo-jin says that this deal will move more smoothly if they work together. After all, both Woo-jin and Cha Gyeol's companies are involved in this deal. What's more, it seems that Woo-jin knows about Bae Chan-ho's involvement in this deal as well. He teases Cha Gyeol, asking if he's really okay with the fact his ex-girlfriend's former boyfriend is also in on this deal. This draws the line for Cha Gyeol, who immediately tells Woo-jin to leave. However, before Woo-jin can leave, he takes notice of something. "Oh, come on, why is it raining?" asks Woo-jin, staring out the window. Cha Gyeol stands up at Woo-jin's observation, saying that he just washed his car the day before. Woo-jin asks if he can give him a lift in his car, but Gyeol nonchalantly declines, leaving Woo-jin in his office. Cha Gyeol leaves the office in his car, driving through the rain. The weather makes him annoyed, but he can't help but think about finding Namgyo wherever she may be. Will she really still be in the rain? The narrow roads of the neighborhood of the office don't help Gyeol's mood. But still, for some reason, he feels like Namgyo is somewhere waiting in the rain. Feeling restless, he finally gets out of his car, running in search of her. That's it. This guy is losing his mind, isn't he? Or maybe not. Much to his own astonishment, Cha Gyeol finds Namgyo in the rain, standing below the same place they met again after 10 years. Despite being drenched in the rain, Gyo turns around, noticing the man she loves. With a smile on her face, despite the cold, she calls out to him. "Cha Gyeol!" Namgyo calls out to him in the heavy rain, but gets no reply from the man. She wonders why he isn't saying anything. He isn't even angry or shouting at her for coming to look for him when she shouldn't. But that matters little to Gyo, seeing as Gyeol is doing fine despite her worries. She tells him that she only wanted to confirm something, but now that she sees everything is fine, she will be taking her leave. With a sigh, Cha Gyeol tells her that she can't leave with how drenched she is. Instead, he invites her into the office, which makes Gyo very happy. There's no one in the office apart from the both of them. Gyeol suddenly tells Namgyo to take off her shirt and have his own, much to her embarrassment. It's clear she misunderstood the man's intentions, not that she's complaining. However, as Gyeol wants to hand her his shirt, she drags him by the arm so she can see his bare back. He has a strange-looking tattoo covering his entire back, which makes Gyo scared to the point she's speechless. Gyeol tries not to talk about it, telling her that he will go to the other side of the room so she can change freely. Namgyo can barely even move her hands. After seeing the tattoo on Gyeol's back, she suddenly feels very scared. Gyo has no prejudice against people with tattoos, but the way that tattoo looks is so menacing. She remembers Officer Gu Woon-ho's warnings about Cha Gyeol and his company, Global Deal. Namgyo can't help but think that perhaps Cha Gyeol really is involved in some shady business. Have you finished changing? Asks Gyeol, interrupting Namgyeo's train of thoughts. She tells him that she's almost done changing, and Gyeol replies by telling her to come over to him when she's done. However, it is at that moment that they hear some chatter coming from outside the office. It seems like Cha Gyeol's workers are coming back already. The door swings open, and the men step in to find Gyeol shirtless while sitting at his desk. However, Namgyo is nowhere to be seen. The men are surprised as to why Gyeol is here. He is supposed to be working at the headquarters today. Furthermore, why is he even shirtless? Regardless, the men decide to invite him out for a drink. But at that moment, they notice Namgyo's shirt on the floor as well as her handbag. The incredibly flustered men suddenly flee from the room, completely misunderstanding the situation. However, it works in Cha Gyeol's favor. All this time, Namgyo has been hiding under his desk. Seeing that the coast is now clear, Gyeol tells her that she can come out now. However, Geo doesn't move. He discovers that she is actually crying. As for Geo, she can't help but think that Cha Gyeol is going through this sort of dangerous life because of her. If Gyeol didn't get expelled by helping her, he wouldn't be here now, would he? Namgyo, says Cha Gyeol, looking down at the crying celebrity athlete. I know what you're thinking about, but it's not like that, so please stop crying. He eventually manages to console Geo and get her to stand, but still, Cha Gyeol wants to know the reason Namgyo is crying. You got that tattoo because of me, and you even have to work in a place like this, says Geo, as Gyeol wipes away her tears. He urges her to go on, as if she's his little baby girl, and Geo does continue, small drops trickling from her eyes. You didn't even bother to give me your contact, Geo says. Last time you just gave me money and then pushed me out. She really does sound like a baby, doesn't she? A real adorable baby girl. Cha Gyeol doesn't give her a sufficient reply yet until she asks him if he hates looking at her face. It's clear that she can't get over the guilt of Gyeol getting expelled because of her. She even thinks that he hates her for it. However, Gyeol stops Namgyo as she tries to hide her face from him. Geo, says Cha Gyeol, but he is immediately interrupted by Namgyo. She doesn't want him to call her by that name. Because she knows that if Gyeol keeps calling her like that, she won't be able to let go of him again. Cha Gyeol consents to her request, asking her if they can talk later because he has to do something else. Confused and hurt, Namgyo asks if this means he doesn't feel like talking to her right now. Gyeol insists that's not what he means before kissing Namgyo full on the lips, taking the celebrity athlete by surprise. After their passionate kiss, Gyeol tells Geo to keep talking because he knows she has a lot of questions to ask him. Will you answer me? Asks the surprised Namgyo. Gyeol says that he will if he can, and so Geo doesn't hold back her curiosity any longer. She asks Gyeol about the nature of his job and the company he works for, telling him things she heard from Officer Gu Woon-ho. She asks if his company really does sponsor athletes. She even asks about his tattoo. Cha Gyeol surprisingly answers her questions honestly, even though the replies are vague. It turns out that he doesn't even know the company, but is merely a manager and business partner of the actual owner. Furthermore, he reveals that he has had the tattoo for a long time, so she has nothing to be concerned about. But Geo feels like she should be concerned. After all, Gyeol was expelled from school because he tried to help her, not the other things he's done for her in the past. Despite Gyeol trying to downplay it, Namgyo confesses that she really thought Cha Gyeol left so suddenly because he was disappointed in her. For the past 10 years, she couldn't find him and lived with this thought all this while. However, Cha Gyeol reiterates that her assumptions are all wrong. He is very happy that Namgyo listened to his advice from 10 years ago. But Geo's curiosity doesn't end there. She asks him why he didn't bother to give her his contact details when they met at the office. Initially speechless, Cha Gyeol replies by asking Geo for the money he gave to her. Namgyo remembers the money. It's the same one she used to pay for the coffee with journalist Jo Si-eun. She thanks Gyeol for the money because it really helped her out of a sticky situation. However, this leaves Gyeol speechless again. He reveals that his contact information is actually written on that note, much to his embarrassment. I wrote my number on it, Cha Gyeol confesses, clearly flustered by his own words. He explains to the astonished Namgyo that he actually didn't write it in advance to give it to her, but happened to have it on him at the time. The time that she brought up the idea to loan money from his company made him remember he had a note with his contact details on it. This note is actually from a time he almost accidentally gave someone cash instead of his business card. Honestly, Cha Gyeol confesses that he assumed Namgyo would immediately call him upon seeing the details on the note. However, Namgyo bursts out in fury, slapping him consecutively on his bare chest. How is it possible to notice his contact details on the note anyway? His writing looked like scribblings, and she wouldn't be sure if it was really his number in the first place. Cha Gyeol apologizes for the vagueness of his message and hugs Geo. Their intimate moment is interrupted when Geo's phone suddenly starts to ring. But who would be calling her at this time? Namgyo heads over to pick the phone, but is held back by Cha Gyeol, who begs her not to pick the phone. "I'll hang up quickly," replies Geo with a smile. "What if it's something urgent?" Gyeol agrees to this, and Geo goes over to pick the call. The person on the phone is actually Moon Gi-sung. As Geo talks with Moon Gi-sung on the phone, Gyeol suddenly appears behind her, embracing her tightly to the point she's left speechless. This prompts Moon Gi-sung to ask why she's suddenly quiet over the phone, but Gyeol suddenly whispers in her ears, "You said you would be quick." Moon Gi-sung is still on the phone, concerned about why Namgyo has suddenly gone silent despite the call still ongoing. However, back at Cha Gyeol's office, it's clear that this is Gyeol's doing. Namgyo is still on the phone, but is unable to speak because Gyeol has her caught in a deep kiss. She manages to free herself to reply to Moon Gi-sung, asking if they can talk the next day. However, she is interrupted again as Cha Gyeol forces her into another kiss. What is Gyeol doing? At this rate, it's very clear that Gi-sung will hear them on the phone. This dastardly Cha Gyeol knows what he's doing, doesn't he? There's no helping it, because Moon Gi-sung eventually asks if Namgyo is with someone, and Geo has to tell him that she is before ending the call. Cha Gyeol asks if there's anything between Nam and Moon Gi-sung, but she says they're just friends. However, as Gyeol tries to flirt and tease Namgyo, she shows great resilience this time, countering all his tricks easily before telling him it's time she heads home. She even playfully declines a ride from Cha Gyeol to help her home. Since when did Namgyo become so cheeky? Even Cha Gyeol can't find a good counter for her wittiness this time. Despite the earlier banter from Namgyo, she still takes up Cha Gyeol's offer to drop her off. She tells him to close the window so he won't be sued for inappropriate behavior. Cha Gyeol is practically driving shirtless, with only a suit jacket covering his body. Gyeol promises to do as she says, bidding her farewell as she's about to get out. However, it is at that moment that Geo remembers she's still wearing Gyeol's shirt. But Cha Gyeol doesn't think it's a big deal. He closes the door of the vehicle before asking her if she remembers his phone number. Namgyo feels it's unnecessary since she can just save his number. However, despite not giving a valid reason, Cha Gyeol advises her not to save his number on her phone. Instead, he prefers if she can try to memorize it. It's clear to see that Namgyo is upset and troubled about Gyeol not wanting her to save his number. Is his lifestyle really that dangerous? However, Geo is willing to remain positive because at least Gyeol is being honest with his answers. Upon going up the elevator and arriving at her apartment, she opens the door to discover that there's someone's shoes at the door. Namgyo is visibly frustrated at the person who dared to come to her place without telling her in advance. It's none other than Nam Sayo, her younger brother, who is lying on the ground with his head on the couch while playing a game on his phone. "You're back?" Sayo replies to Geo coolly, as if his sister wasn't just yelling at him. Namgyo tells him that he can at least text if he's coming. It seems Nam Sayo is only at her place because their mother told him to bring food for Namgyo. Sayo asks why Geo is coming home so late. He says that if she's not with Moon Gi-sung, it's better she finds somewhere safe to stay instead of moving in the streets so late. This sparks Namgyo's interest because she knows Nam Sayo doesn't really like Gi-sung. However, her troublesome younger brother finally reveals that it's because of some kid he knows that made money from Gi-sung. Apparently, there's something called Deodo sport. Anyone who calls Moon Gi-sung, stating that phrase, is given money. However, Namgyo notes that there's nothing called Deodo in Korean UFC. Of course not, replies Namsayo enthusiastically. It's unofficial. That's the moment Geo completely loses her head. Unofficial means illegal, exclaims Geo. She asks if Namsayo is also involved, but he denies it. The boy, fearing for his life, rises to his feet immediately after, asking her for transport fare so he can go home. Seems like Geo almost made the poor boy wet his pants. Namgyo hands him a credit card to pay for his taxi ride back home, but poor Sayo gets excited, thinking he has access to some free cash. However, Geo makes him aware that she will receive notifications anytime he uses the card, much to his disappointment. She also tells Sayo that if she discovers he has an involvement with the illegal DD Odo, then she will report him to the police. After reiterating his innocence, Sayo has the nerve to fart before leaving, which irks his celebrity sister. However, despite what she said to her younger brother, Namgyo doubts she'll really be able to report him to the police if he actually is involved with the DD Odo. Moving on from that thought, she decides to call Moon Gi-sung to clear up any misunderstanding he might have had when she was with Cha Gyeol earlier. The tired Gi-sung answers her call, stating he's just getting home. Apparently, what he wanted to ask Namgyo earlier is if she will be available tomorrow. He says that a former basketball player turned actor named Kyung-shin is celebrating his birthday tomorrow, and he wants Namgyo to tag along. Geo isn't too keen on attending the party, since she isn't really a fan of Kyung-shin. However, she decides to go with him. But it seems that Moon Gi-sung has an ulterior motive, which Geo isn't oblivious to. Could it be that he plans to use this birthday party as an excuse to get Namgyo to fall in love with him? Namgyo and Moon Gi-sung arrive at Kyung-shin's party together. It's being held at a place with a pool. It's clear that Geo isn't very ecstatic about being at the party. She thinks it is very noisy and just another exorbitant display by Kyung-shin, thinking he's some megastar. Even Gi-sung admits that he wasn't expecting something like this situation. Namgyo is still ranting about her dislike for Kyung-shin when someone calls out to Moon Gi-sung. Yup, it's none other than Kyung-shin himself. Do Kyung-shin and Moon Gi-sung exchange pleasantries before Gi-sung introduces Namgyo to the former basketball player turned actor. Contrary to what Geo says earlier, she and Kyung-shin exchange greetings emphatically. Furthermore, Kyung-shin doesn't even seem like an arrogant guy. He is honored by Namgyo's presence, even willing to make her presence known to the rest of his friends. And also, Kyung-shin seems appreciative of the gifts Namgyo and Moon Gi-sung bring for him. Seems like Geo has completely misjudged his character, doesn't it? Interestingly, contained in Gi-sung's gift to Do Kyung-shin is some chocolate, apparently from a relative that couldn't make it. Geo takes notice of it too, and it seems like she is wrong about him using his relative's absence as an excuse to invite her for the party. However, she isn't entirely convinced yet. Kyung-shin tells them that they can go to the second floor of the center, and on their way, Geo keeps looking at Moon Gi-sung skeptically. Huh, what's wrong? Asks Moon Gi-sung, a faint smile on his face. Geo, feeling embarrassed, tells him that she didn't expect him to think so simply. It seems she's excessively cautious about Gi-sung for no reason. They reach the upper floor and have their seats, watching others enjoy the birthday party. Why don't you go swimming in the pool? It looks fun, suggests Geo to Moon Gi-sung. However, the man replies that he just wants to sit back and relax. However, at that moment, another person calls out to Gi-sung. It is a woman who apparently is a classmate of Kyung-shin in the acting academy, who seems eager to talk to Moon Gi-sung. Namgyo starts to realize just how popular Moon Gi-sung is these days. Even a pretty lady like this woman is so comfortable talking to him. She feels it's better for her to leave, but before she can completely rise to her feet, Gi-sung grasps her by the wrist. "Where are you going?" asks Gi-sung. Seeing as Geo is unable to give him an answer, he tells her that he wants to tag along. However, Geo swiftly declines, saying she wants to go to the toilet. And also, he is in the middle of a conversation with one of Kyung-shin's former classmates. "You should stay here. I'll be right back." Geo tells Moon Gi-sung, tapping him on the shoulder. Despite his reluctance, he has no choice. Geo goes to the restroom, fawning over how expensive the venue for Kyongshin's birthday party must be. She even spots a sweeper taking care of the restroom. However, on closer observation, she realizes that it isn't actually a cleaner, but journalist Jo Si-eun. Why is she dressed up as a cleaner? Is this her side job? Unfortunately, that isn't the case at all. Namgyo quickly deduces that Jo Si-eun is here to gather information for one of her articles. Seeing that her identity has been exposed, Jo Si-eun begs Namgyo for help and also to hide her real identity. At the same time, Kyongshin is suddenly seen going up the moving stairs while talking to someone on the phone. Is he the reason Jo Si-eun is at the event center? As Do Kyongshin passes by the bathroom, journalist Jo Si-eun hides herself and Namgyo to prevent him from seeing them. Kyongshin is still on the phone with a woman he calls his baby. Luckily for them, he only rests in the room beside the bathroom for a while, before the person on the phone tells him to come back downstairs. His departure signals a moment of relief for Namgyo. She doesn't know if she would be able to handle it if he stayed up any longer. But as she turns her attention to the journalist, Geo finds Jo Si-eun picking up a used smoking stick that Do Kyongshin dropped before leaving the room. Geo asks Jo Si-eun if she's really at the event center to just sneak around. However, the journalist tells Geo that she can't say anything because she doesn't know what sort of relationship exists between Namgyo and Kyongshin. Regardless, Geo isn't accepting Si-eun's words. She finds it unacceptable that journalist Jo Si-eun wants her to keep her identity a secret, but still has no trust in her to tell her about what's really going on. Geo reaffirms that she doesn't have concrete affiliations with Do Kyongshin or anyone else, apart from her friend Moon Gi-sung. She wants the journalist to tell the truth about why she's at the party, so she will know whether to help keep her identity a secret. Fortunately, it seems Geo's words are enough to make journalist Jo Si-eun reconsider her actions. She doesn't disclose much, but tells Namgyo to be careful of the people close to Do Kyongshin. Si-eun truthfully states that even she currently has no idea about Kyongshin's close connections. She only comes to this place to collect information, but that is all she chooses to disclose to the former Taekwondo athlete. So far, Jo Si-eun only suspects a few people as being in cahoots with Kyongshin. These culprits are his classmates at the acting academy and the woman he was talking to on the phone, who she believes is his lover. Geo starts to see some truth in the journalist's words. She summons courage and asks Jo Si-eun if she is sure that Kyongshin is hoarding drugs at the party. But the journalist admits that she isn't sure. Furthermore, unless she is able to see the crime scene, she won't even be able to call the police. It is at that moment that Namgyo suddenly remembers that she left Moon Gi-sung alone with a classmate of Kyongshin. She hurriedly leaves Jo Si-eun, telling her she'll get in touch with her later to go find Moon Gi-sung. Down at the second floor, Kyongshin's classmate is trying to persuade Moon Gi-sung to have a drink. Despite his earlier refusal, the lady does manage to persuade Gi-sung to have a simple sip of the drink. However, before the UFC fighter can gulp down the drink, Geo arrives in the nick of time to snatch the glass out of his hand. The surprised Moon Gi-sung asks Namgyo what the matter is, but she insists they leave first. In fact, she wants them to go home, away from this place. Unable to verbally tell Moon Gi-sung why she's so pressed to leave, Geo types it on her phone and shows it to him. She believes they might have been invited to a drug party. Meanwhile, with Cha Gyeol, he has one of his men secretly watching Park Woo-jin while he surveys the area from his car. The man tells Gyeol that Woo-jin has barely left his house all day. Furthermore, he doesn't seem to be doing anything suspicious. While Cha Gyeol is on the phone, talking to the man, he sees a white car pull over in front of him. And guess who steps out of the car? Why, it's none other than Namgyo. Upon seeing her, Gyeol tells the man they're done watching Woo-jin for the day and that he can go home. However, he suddenly notices Moon Gi-sung stepping out of the white car with Namgyo. It seems the two are going up together to Geo's apartment. Cha Gyeol is visibly annoyed by the sight of Gi-sung. Looks like someone's jealous. Anyway, Geo and Gi-sung arrive at Geo's apartment. However, the shocking news that Geo broke to Moon Gi-sung clearly still has him rattled. He even rejects Geo's offer to get him something to drink. Instead, Moon Gi-sung wants to know everything that the journalist told Namgeo about Kyongshin's party. Geo remains confident that Jo Si-eun isn't lying to her about Kyongshin hosting a drug party. But if that's the case, Moon Gi-sung wants to know why the woman didn't bother to call the police. Geo tells him that it's because she doesn't have enough evidence. Besides, if the journalist really did decide to call the police, it means that both Geo and Moon Gi-sung would also be in trouble. Geo explains that this is the reason she prioritized them leaving the party first, before she could say anything. Geo asks the Korean UFC fighter if he ate anything Kyongshin's classmate offered him. Anything that looks strange. However, Gi-sung makes it clear that he didn't take more than the food he shared with Geo. Although, he makes mention of the wine that the woman kept trying to make him drink, even though he didn't really want to. "You should have run away if it was that suspicious," exclaims Namgeo. She can't believe Gi-sung simply sat with the lady and was even about to drink the wine. But Moon Gi-sung reminds her that she's the one that told him to wait for her at that table. This leaves Namgeo speechless because she can't tell Moon Gi-sung the real reason she left the table. How can she tell him that she wants him to try being with someone else instead of chasing after her? That would make her sound like a horrible person, wouldn't it? Gi-sung asks Geo about journalist Jo Si-eun once more, questioning her reliability. Understandably, this situation is a difficult one for Moon Gi-sung because, after all, Do Kyongshin is someone he sees as a friend. Despite Namgeo being quick to judge him because of her inherent dislike of him, it's clear that Moon Gi-sung isn't willing to do the same. He proposes they act like they know nothing, at least until some evidence turns up. Gi-sung is willing to trust the words of some journalist he has never seen over those of his friends. This puts Namgeo and Moon Gi-sung on opposite ends. Could this possibly cause a rift between friends? Geo feels bad that this situation might actually affect their friendship. However, at that moment, someone knocks on the door. The knocking continues until Geo tells whoever is at the door to stop knocking as she approaches it. "Open it," the person says. Opening the door, Geo is surprised to see Cha Gyeol standing before her. What's he doing here at this time? Cha Gyeol steps in, but it seems Moon Gi-sung doesn't really recognize him as he challenges him for coming to visit Geo so late. Cha Gyeol almost makes a scene as he tells Geo to introduce him properly to Moon Gi-sung, hugging her intimately. This prompts the embarrassed Geo to tell Gi-sung to leave. She even forces him out of her apartment, leaving the Korean UFC fighter confused. "Did I interrupt you?" asks Cha Gyeol as the two stand alone in Geo's apartment. "Because I was going to." After recovering from her shock at Gyeol's appearance, Namgeo asks him how he knows her apartment suite. Can you believe what Cha Gyeol says in reply? This man claims to have knocked on every door on the floor until he found hers. Is he insane? Doesn't he know he can be arrested for doing such a thing? Geo asks Gyeol why he's here so suddenly. After all, she was talking about a serious matter with Moon Gi-sung before his arrival. She even kicked him out because of the scene Gyeol made. However, Cha Gyeol says that this is exactly what he wants. He reveals to Namgeo that he was actually scared upon seeing her with Gi-sung. This man can't hide his jealousy, can he? However, Namgeo can't believe the situation she finds herself in. After 10 years of waiting longing for Cha Gyeol, he finally starts to act like he cares about her? It's too good for her to believe, but Geo can't say she doesn't like it. Suddenly, Cha Gyeol asks Namgeo why she's so hot. At first, she thinks he's trying to flirt with her. But it seems Gyeol is being very serious. He checks Namgeo's temperature again and is sure that she's running a fever. Gyeol remembers that Geo was waiting out in the rain the previous day, just to see him. Now this poor love-struck girl has managed to get herself sick. Cha Gyeol tells Namgeo to go get some rest. He leads her to her bedroom, telling her to go in first and get changed. After some time, Geo announces to Cha Gyeol that she's done changing. Gyeol comes into her bedroom to find Namgeo lying on her bed, looking even more feverish than before. Cha Gyeol notices that she's sweating a lot. It seems like her feverish condition is a very serious one. Even moving or talking seems very difficult for Namgyo to do at this point. Gyeol feels so tired that she's slowly starting to fall asleep. Therefore, she tells Cha Gyeol to go home, but he insists on staying by her side and watching her sleep. Despite not wanting to, Namgyo's eyes close shut as she drifts into dreamland. The next scene shows what looks like a past memory belonging to Namgyo. It's afternoon time in the dream, with a teenage Namgyo stepping into a restaurant. She's here for no other reason but to see Cha Gyeol. The teenage Gyeol informs her that she's late, looking a little disappointed. However, Gyeol informs him that it's because of her Taekwondo training. As their conversation continues, Namgyo starts to feel strange upon noticing his ear piercings. She asks Cha Gyeol if he hasn't stopped wearing his earrings already. Unfortunately, Gyeol doesn't understand her words, thinking she's mistaking him for another person. The image she has of Cha Gyeol is his older self, and she suddenly starts to wonder whether she's recalling a past memory or not. What sort of strange dream is Namgyo having? Is what she's experiencing really even a dream? Cha Gyeol and Namgyo leave the restaurant and head down the street. In that time, Gyeol doesn't stop staring at Gyeol, which makes the boy a bit uneasy. "Why do you keep staring at me?" Gyeol asks. Gyeol tells him that he is acting strange. She can't understand why Cha Gyeol looks so young again. It's clear that she is confusing him for his older self. Cha Gyeol asks if Gyeol is feeling okay. On the contrary, however, Gyeol doesn't feel fine. She suddenly starts to feel dizzy as she feels her memories are getting mixed up. What on earth is happening to her? The concerned Cha Gyeol decides to call a taxi that will take her home. While he does that, Gyeol takes a look at the bandaged wound on his forehead. She asks about Park Woojin, who she knows is the person that dealt that injury to Cha Gyeol. However, the answer Gyeol gives is very different from what she knows. Instead of Cha Gyeol getting expelled, it seems Park Woojin is the one that got expelled instead. She also says something about Nam Sayo waking up from a coma, but she doesn't remember an event like that ever happening. Oh no, what is happening to Gyeol? It seems like she can't tell apart her dream from reality anymore. Is this because of her fever, or is it because of another reason? Even as Cha Gyeol calls out to her, Gyeol can't get her head straight. She really doesn't understand anything that's going on. And it doesn't end there. She suddenly has another dream where Cha Gyeol proposes to her, just after her interview at the Olympics. In this dream, Gyeol is a police officer for some reason, and she really makes little sense of what is going on. She has another dream where she is a criminal police officer chasing after a criminal, and there seems to be someone severely hurt, lying on the ground beside her. As she turns to face this wounded figure, Gyeol suddenly startles awake. She finds Cha Gyeol is still resting beside her bed, meaning she stayed with her all through the night. It seems he has even gotten her medicine and a wet towel for her fever. Cha Gyeol takes it upon himself to take care of the ill Namgyo, even helping her apply the wet towel after getting her consent. However, it seems that Gyeol's mind is very distant. She is still thinking about the dreams she had of Cha Gyeol. The one she has of the younger Cha Gyeol feels too realistic for Namgyo, almost like she has experienced it before. However, the other dream she has where Cha Gyeol is a police officer has a different feel to it. It feels so surreal, like she has never put herself in that sort of situation before. In the end, she feels like her mind has been caught between her dreams and her actual reality. Cha Gyeol notices how afraid she looks and asks if it is because she doesn't trust him. However, that isn't the case. As Gyeol continues to apply the wet towel on her skin, Namgyo tries to tell him about her dream, but can't really form coherent words. Nonetheless, Cha Gyeol comforts her, telling her not to worry about anything, because it's only a dream. Fortunately, it seems that's enough to calm her nerves. The evening of the same day, Cha Gyeol meets up with an elderly man who is actually a senator and even gives him a gift as he departs in his car. However, the man actually has no good opinion of Cha Gyeol. After the man's departure, Cha Gyeol receives a call from Namgyo before he goes to meet her at a bridge. Cha Gyeol is surprised to see Gyeol outside, especially since she was running a fever the day before. Of course, Gyeol shamelessly tries to deny her feverish condition, but Gyeol doesn't give her that luxury. As they share drinks, Cha Gyeol reminds her of the things she told him yesterday regarding her dreams and how nervous they made him. Namgyo finally tells Gyeol that she saw her in her dreams. "You appeared in my dream," says Namgyo to Cha Gyeol. Gyeol asks whether she saw him in a nightmare, but Gyeol says it's only sometimes. She tells Gyeol that he left her, but she still dreams of him sometimes. Before the two can continue the conversation, however, they are interrupted when two women suddenly approach. They are both fans of Namgyo, who really want to take a picture with her. Lucky for them, Gyeol is willing to grant them their wish. Namgyo apologizes for making Cha Gyeol wait, but he doesn't mind it at all. After a brief discussion, the two of them decide to head over to Cha Gyeol's place in his car. While they're heading over to his place, Namgyo remembers something that happened earlier today. It is about her conversation with journalist Jo Si-eun over the phone. The journalist reminds Namgyo to be careful not to mingle with Do Kyung-shin or people in his circle. But she also says something else. She asks about Gio's friend that brought her to the party. But why could she possibly be asking about Moon Gi-sung? However, journalist Jo Si-eun clarifies that she isn't going to ask Namgyo for her friend's name, but just wants to tell her to be cautious of that person for the meantime. This doesn't go down well with Gio at all. She tells the journalist that Moon Gi-sung is incapable of doing such a thing. Still, Jo Si-eun tells her that there could be more people involved in the drug party fiasco than Gio thinks, which could also include Moon Gi-sung, but Namgyo isn't having any of it. She even goes as far as threatening to hang up with the journalist, who keeps suspecting her longtime friend. Even after she and Cha Gyeol arrive at his place, Gio can't stop thinking about it as she stands at the balcony. She is feeling confused about everything, including Cha Gyeol. She really wants to know everything about this man she is in love with. This leads to the both of them sharing an intimate moment. Namgyo and Cha Gyeol have a lovely moment by his balcony. Isn't that just so romantic? However, before things can get out of control, Namgyo tells Cha Gyeol to stop because she wants to have a word with him first. Despite his initial hesitance, Cha Gyeol admits to Gio that he is obsessed with her. And so what? Replies Gio. But this is actually a plan for her to free herself from his grasp and run into his flat. The embarrassed Gio tries to explain himself at first until he realizes Gio is running into his apartment. "Wait, Gio!" exclaims Cha Gyeol. Running after her, he finds the former Taekwondo athlete sitting on his bed. "I'm here," Namgyo replies, smiling at him. Unable to restrain himself any longer, Cha Gyeol rushes at her, pinning her down on his bed. As they share an intimate kiss, Cha Gyeol asks Gio to date him. He even goes as far as to ask Gio what she wants to know about him to show his level of commitment. Gyeol asks Namgyo what she will do if he disappears again. Although at first speechless, Gio comes up with a reply. She says that she has been thinking about them being together for 10 years. It's something that she actually finds a bit humorous now in retrospect. Gio says it's only been 10 years. She groans, tries to sit up, but a cough comes first. Something's pressing down on her. Morning light filters in. This isn't her house. Not judging, but seriously? The guy drives a car worth more than some houses, yet he lives here? Did he drop his entire budget on the ride and forget about the rest? She should go home, but who actually manages to leave at this hour? There's still a lot to ask. Her eyes land on a calendar. Weird that it's actually being used. Who even keeps physical calendars? Decoration or some kind of organized chaos? It's packed almost a year's worth of notes. Then something stands out. An accident. Arson. Her brows furrow. What's that? Rain pours down, streets slick and dark. Cha Gyeol moves forward, cop uniform clinging to him, eyes locked on the body sprawled on the ground. Namgyo. He jolts awake, heart still hammering. A faint hum fills the room. The washing machine. He reaches out, but the bed is empty. Panic kicks in. Just as he grabs his phone, he spots her through the balcony doors, comfortably curled up with a tub of ice cream, grumbling at her phone. Relieved, he strides over and swipes a spoonful without hesitation. She barely reacts, too focused on whatever has her so worked up. He raises a brow at her choice of breakfast, suggesting rice would have been the wiser option. She shrugs, saying it's delicious and was just sitting there in the fridge. Something about an ad caught her eye. Does he eat their ice cream too? Must be nice being the boss and still sneaking bites at home. She sighs, says she feels like exploding sometimes. He smirks. Only sometimes? That's good news, at least she's still here. She deadpans. It's times like now. Gyeol glances around, muttering that his place feels oddly familiar. Gyeol doesn't miss a beat. Maybe it reminds her of all the houses of the men she's dated. She scoffs, says he's the only man in her life, then suddenly remembers, right, she did date someone publicly. He leans back, amused. There's also the guy who followed her home. She rolls her eyes, insists that's not the kind of relationship they have, then turns the tables. How many has he dated? He shrugs, throwing it back at her. She talks first. Gyeol, intrigued, suggests a game. They say their numbers at the same time. They count down together, but when the moment comes, only she speaks. Gyeol stays silent. She glares, waiting. He leans in, grinning, and whispers that he's still counting. She tells him to keep it to himself, says she won't ask again. He tilts his head, asking why she suddenly looks so drained. Does she regret it? Rather than that, she says she can't even count them, but he has one, so he feels a little... He should have said 1.5, but what's the difference? He raises a brow. What is 0.5? Did she date half a person? Upper half or lower half? She sighs. It's him. She thought they were dating, but he said they weren't. He bursts out laughing. She squints. Is he laughing at her? He shakes his head, still grinning. He just thinks it's funny that even if he's just 0.5, he still exists in her past. A knock sounds at the interviewer's door. Yunsu stands outside. Yunsu settles into the interview, clarifying she's retired from athletics without a clear reason. The interviewer raises an eyebrow, noting the unusual choice of meeting location. Yunsu smirks, hinting at the need for discretion, suggesting that even walls have ears. The interviewer requests to record their chat, and Yunsu agrees, seeming to relax a bit. The topic shifts to her relationship with Bae Chon-ho, her ex-boyfriend, and Yunsu reflects on their complicated past. She reveals he reached out after years of silence, and their conversation was awkward at first. In a flashback, Yunsu receives a call from Bae Chon-ho, exchanging witty banter. He teases her about being busy, saying she's still the same. Yunsu fires back, threatening to hang up if he doesn't get to the point. Bae Chon-ho mentions a surprising story about Gyeol's Olympic participation. Yunsu's expression turns serious as Bae Chon-ho hints at her alleged involvement in match fixing. He suggests she deliberately gave up, and her loyalty is questioned. Back in the present, Yunsu discusses the intense competition in sports. She acknowledges a mysterious player's exceptional talent, which sparked envy in her. The interviewer's curiosity is piqued, but Yunsu playfully withholds the player's name. She says it's irrelevant, but the interviewer presses on. Yunsu reveals that just before a crucial match, the player's condition unexpectedly deteriorated. She received an intriguing offer, ensuring the player wouldn't lose. The interviewer leans in, sensing a juicy secret, and asks what kind of offer it was. Yunsu discusses the world of competitive sports, where athletes are catapulted to fame after winning medals. She mentions the lucrative sponsorship deals that come with success. A flashback reveals a conversation where a man bluntly tells Yunsu she's not capable of winning, advising her to step aside. Yunsu returns to the present, revealing a shocking truth. She was asked to deliberately lose a match to a special player. The interviewer probes, asking if Yunsu accepted the offer. Yunsu hesitates, correcting herself and clarifying that she didn't accept it. A flashback shows the man ordering Yunsu to back down, but she's unable to explain why she complied. Yunsu explains that the special player despises unfair training methods, and she didn't want to be seen as a cheater. She confesses that she didn't want to make a fuss or get in the player's way. Yunsu wonders how Bae Chan discovered her secret, revealing that he's been using it to threaten her for years. A flashback shows Yunsu confronting Bae Chan, asking how he found out about the match fixing. Bae Chan smirks, saying he has his ways. Yunsu demands to know what he wants, but Bae Chan denies any ulterior motives. He makes a cryptic comment about relationships and the many girls like Yunsu. Yunsu explains that the interviewer asks her to explain Bae Chan's cryptic comment. The game is different anyway. Yunsu reveals that she knew the player was being manipulated, and a company fabricated a story to influence the game's outcome. Even without the order, the match's result would have been the same, as the player received a similar offer from a related organization. Yunsu recalls Bei-chan mentioning an interesting offer from someone, possibly hinting at a connection to the company. The interviewer presses for more information, asking what Bei-chan's offer was about. Yunsu bluntly says match fixing, but clarifies that Bei-chan didn't explicitly say it. She explains that they exploited her weaknesses, forcing her to pretend to accept the offer. Yunsu cleverly played along, pretending to care in order to gather evidence. That's why Bei-chan kept following her. She's a crucial part of his survival strategy. The interviewer asks if Yunsu knows the company's name. She confidently says yes, it's a distribution company that recently expanded. She reveals that the company distributes all the trendy electronics, leaving her puzzled about its connection to the sports industry. Gyeol walks in, cautioning Woojin about indigestion from overeating, wondering why Woojin suddenly invited him to dinner. Woojin attempts to hug Gyeol, who brushes him off, telling him to stop being silly and sit down. Woojin asks if he can't be friendlier, given their relationship. Gyeol says he can say what he wants. Woojin claims he called to greet Gyeol, thanking him for making the organization's creation easier. Gyeol's expression turns serious, hinting at a complex dynamic between them. Woojin's comment seems to carry more weight than a simple greeting. Gyeol's cautious demeanor suggests he's unsure of Woojin's true intentions. The tension between them is palpable. Gyeol scrolls through her phone, pondering a mysterious message that eerily resembles her dream. Initially, she thought it was a schedule memo, but now she's not so sure. She wonders if fate is nudging her towards a career in law enforcement. Gyeol starts researching how to become a police officer, but her search is flooded with advertisements. She's determined to find something meaningful. Amidst the noise, she stumbles upon a martial arts competition, which sparks a connection to her dream. Gyeol finds it unsettling how closely the details match. Another article catches her eye, making her wonder if she's destined to become an undercover police officer. But she's puzzled. Shouldn't undercover cops wear plain clothes, not uniforms? Gyeol questions whether a world champion like herself can join the police force. She reminds herself that dreams are just dreams, not precise predictions. Yet, she can't shake off the feeling that Cha Gyeol's notes and her dreams are connected. Gyeol's curiosity is piqued, and she's determined to uncover the truth. Her mind is racing with possibilities, and she's eager to explore this mysterious path. Gyeol wonders if she and Cha Gyeol are sharing the same dream, pondering if it's fate that's bringing them together. She quickly brushes off the thought, not wanting to seem foolish. Just then, she hears someone trying to open her door. She freezes, thinking it might be Cha Gyeol, but then she opens the door to find her mother standing there. This is definitely not part of the plan. Her mother asks if she's waiting for someone, noticing the changed password. Gyeol tries to play it cool, explaining that she hasn't contacted her mom in a while. Her mom responds that if she had, she would have told Gyeol not to come, adding that she didn't want Gyeol to be tired. Gyeol's mom suggests going inside to tidy up, but Gyeol thinks fast, mentioning that she has a date, hoping her mom will leave quickly. Instead, her mom insists on making coffee first, sending Gyeol into panic mode. She frantically calls Cha Gyeol, praying he doesn't show up. Gyeol's heart is racing as she tries to stall her mom, all while wondering what Cha Gyeol will do when he arrives. Cha Gyeol arrives. Confidently walking in and greeting Gyeol's mother with a polite bow, he hands over a business card, leaving her stunned. She's shocked that he has a business card, and even more surprised when he announces that he's dating her. Her mother, caught off guard, awkwardly excuses herself and leaves. As soon as she's gone, she demands an explanation, asking why he never showed her his business card before. He downplays the card's significance, saying it's not a big deal. She teases him, revealing that she thought the card was from a loan company, and he laughs, assuring her it's not. He explains that he's actually the vice president of a company, but doesn't elaborate, telling her to forget it. She jokes that she's just hearing about his promotion for the first time, and he smiles, saying it's nothing to brag about. He asks her for a hug, claiming he's trembling from the surprise, and she playfully obliges, asking if he's serious. His expression turns affectionate as she hugs him. Geo sits down, and two men approach her, one greeting her warmly and asking if she's there to see the manager. She offers them a snack, revealing she brought it with Uncle Woon Ho. The man is amused, thanking her for the treat. The other man jokingly asks if she wants to be his daughter-in-law, despite his son being only in primary school. His companion shoots him a confused look. They ask if the manager is busy, and Geo replies that he's on his way. The two men nod and turn to leave. Geo waits outside the office, pondering Cha Gyeol's words and wondering if that's why her uncle told her to contact him directly. Uncle Woon Ho approaches, inviting her inside. She comments on the tense atmosphere, and he asks if she's really feeling stressed. She hands him a coffee and cookie, instructing him to dip the cookie in the coffee. He teases her, asking if that's what kids eat nowadays. She calmly reveals to her uncle that she's been seeing Cha Gyeol, prompting him to spit out his drink in surprise. She asks why he's so shocked, reminding him that she mentioned meeting Cha Gyeol coincidentally. Her uncle asks for clarification, and she confirms that they're indeed dating. He chokes on his drink again, and she teases him about his reaction. He asks if she's truly in love with Cha Gyeol. She explains that she wanted to discuss something with him because of Cha Gyeol, specifically asking why he didn't tell her about Cha Gyeol's whereabouts. Her uncle reveals that he was asked to keep it a secret. She mentions Cha Gyeol's supposed demotion, and her uncle clarifies that his new position is actually safer than his previous one. He adds that this change brought Cha Gyeol and her together, which he considers a good thing. She presses him for more information about Cha Gyeol's past and why they're keeping secrets from her. Her uncle hesitantly explains that the company Cha Gyeol was involved with has a shady background. He expresses his concerns about their relationship, feeling that Cha Gyeol is like a son to him, but they come from different worlds. She confronts him about abandoning her without a word, asking if he's a criminal or if he deliberately hid Cha Gyeol's disappearance from her for 10 years. He clarifies that he didn't intentionally hide information from her, but had his own problems to deal with. She assures him she's not mad about the secrecy. He asks if her calm demeanor is due to the situation, and she hints that it might be. She wonders what his problem is, and if that's why he cut off contact, especially since he knew Cha Gyeol before her. Frustrated, she stands up, declaring that she'll find out the truth herself, and storms out. She reflects on how she never wanted to get entangled in this mess, remembering the day Cha Gyeol got kicked out of school. She feels angry, thinking that Cha Gyeol is the one being criticized. She chastises herself for being stupid, realizing that they should just ask Cha Gyeol directly. She recalls her uncle's strange behavior, wondering if he said something in front of Cha Gyeol. Her phone rings, interrupting her thoughts. It's a reporter, and she thinks to herself that getting involved with her is exhausting. She answers the call, and reporter Joe thanks her for calling back. Joe explains that she needs a favor, and Geo agrees to listen. Joe mentions that she's having trouble solving a problem, and Geo encourages her to share. Joe reveals that it's about Yunsu, and Geo's curiosity is piqued. The reporter reveals to Geo that their story involves some shady dealings, too sensitive to discuss over the phone. They agree to meet in person, and when they do, the reporter sets up a camera and hands Geo a book to flip through. The topic is shocking: an organization tied to illegal match fixing and drugs, and the public relations ambassador for this group? Yunsu. Geo's eyes widen in surprise. What's Yunsu's connection to this mess? The reporter explains that Yunsu is working to gather evidence to clear her name. Always up for a challenge, Geo jumps at the chance to help, asking how she can get involved. The reporter seems to expect her enthusiasm, nodding as they begin to discuss their plan. Geo's mind is racing with possibilities, eager to dive into the investigation. The reporter's tip leads Geo to a party where she hopes to gather more information. As she mingles, she spots Park Woojin, and her eyes narrow, thinking he should be behind bars, not rubbing shoulders with the elite. She's too busy to check her camera, and before she knows it, she's seated next to her ex-boyfriend, Bei Chan, who's now dating Yunsu. He smirks, teasing her about coming just to see him. Gyeol plays it cool, claiming she's only interested in his success, but Bae-chan senses she's hiding something. He asks if she has any regrets about their breakup or if she's concerned about his relationship with Yunsu. Gyeol denies any lingering feelings, but Bae-chan presses on, wondering why she bothered to follow him. Just as things get awkward, Cha Gyeol appears, placing a hand on Bae-chan's shoulder. Bae-chan's demeanor changes, and he falls silent, acknowledging Gyeol's authority. Gyeol exchanges a brief, tense moment with Bae-chan before turning to Gyeol, commenting on her unusual style, asking if someone helped her with it. Gyeol starts her day with a kick, literally, waking up Sung with a swift boot to the backside. As she gets ready, she receives a text from Namseo, teasing her about staying at Sung's place again, and bluntly asking if they're dating. Later, Gyeol encounters a stunningly handsome stranger who towers over her, a rare occurrence. She notices he smells incredibly good, like fresh soap, making her instantly suspicious. Their paths cross again at the Taekwondo club, sparking her curiosity. He looks like an athlete, making him even more intriguing. In a mortifying moment, Gyeol accidentally bursts into the athlete's bathroom, finding him shirtless. She attempts a hasty exit, but he catches her by the arm. With effortless coolness, he introduces himself as Cha Gyeol. Gyeol stares, realizing this isn't just any guy. Her eyes widen with interest, anticipating an interesting encounter. Woojin is on a call, asking the person on the other end to wait when he hears a noise. He pauses, asking who's there, assuming it's the director. He quickly wraps up the call and approaches the door, commenting that eavesdropping is impolite. He demands the person inside to reveal themselves. Gyeol's voice responds, telling Woojin to leave. Recognizing the voice, Woojin's surprise is evident. He suggests Gyeol leave and return later. Woojin brings up the call, assuming Gyeol overheard it, and proposes they discuss the situation. He finds it puzzling, wondering why Gyeol is being forced into this when everyone else is chasing their desires. Woojin's tone implies that taking the money and walking away would be the easier option. Gyeol's irritation grows as Woojin continues ranting, unaware of Gyeol's presence. Gyeol listens intently, piecing together the conversation. She wonders if Woojin was forced into something and if he's being paid. Gyeol finally calls out to Woojin, who storms off downstairs. Gyeol quietly informs Gyeol that Woojin is gone and asks to be released. Instead, Gyeol demands to know what she's doing. She refuses to answer, and when he notices her camera, he asks why she has it. She tries to brush it off, saying she's just curious. Gyeol isn't convinced. He throws the question back at her, asking why he's involved with Woojin and the director. Gyeol fires back, accusing him of avoiding the topic. Frustrated, Gyeol shoves her against the wall. She protests, telling him not to push her. He brushes her off, saying they should leave. Gyeol demands her camera back, but Gyeol dangles it in front of her, teasing her. He wants to check if there's any useful information on it. He flips the interrogation, asking who put her up to this and who's pulling the strings from the shadows. Gyeol freezes, his words hitting her like a knife. She's trapped, with no excuse or way out. Gyeol's eyes narrow, watching Gyeol closely. She realizes her determination has wavered, but before she can react, he surprises her with a kiss. Pulling away, he lets out a sigh. Gyeol stands frozen, her mind reeling. Is this really goodbye? She wills him to turn back, to say something, anything, but he walks away, leaving her stunned. Gyeol meets with the reporter, who immediately asks if she failed. Gyeol admits to losing her camera, and the reporter's eyebrow shoots up, sensing there's more to the story. Gyeol hesitates, unsure how to explain the complicated events that unfolded. The reporter's frown deepens at Gyeol's uncertain words. Since the incident, Gyeol hasn't contacted Cha Gyeol, and she's clueless about the camera's fate. Despite the uncertainty, she clings to a glimmer of hope that this won't blow up in her face. The reporter suggests exposing their operation to retrieve the camera, but Gyeol swiftly vetoes the idea, deeming it too risky. The reporter studies Gyeol's expression, asking if Cha Gyeol warned her against this. Gyeol nods, confirming his involvement. Gyeol reflects on her past with Gyeol, remembering how she always clung to him while he kept his distance, observing her like a fascinating spectacle. She sighs, acknowledging that she lost both the camera and her chance to uncover Gyeol's secrets. The reporter expresses her distrust of Gyeol, warning that he might not be on their side. She apologizes for the lost evidence, but Gyeol agrees that taking more risks feels perilous. Gyeol reminds herself to separate her emotions from the situation, frustrated that Gyeol once again slipped through her fingers, seemingly controlling her choices. The reporter remains skeptical, sensing that Gyeol's offer must have an ulterior motive, and expresses her desire to meet him. Gyeol raises an eyebrow, wondering why the reporter didn't try to meet him sooner. The reporter shifts the conversation, highlighting the challenges of tracking key figures and the flow of drugs without the camera evidence. However, she's determined to sneak into CEO Park Woo-jin's office once they have a lead. Gyeol's eyes widen as the reporter proposes sneaking into CEO Park Woo-jin's office. The reporter shrugs, downplaying the risk, and Gyeol can't help but laugh at the absurdity. Meanwhile, a streamer is celebrating a mysterious victory on his live channel, claiming he's broken something. His viewers are confused, but he's thrilled. After wrapping up his broadcast, he's surprised by an early morning phone call from a frantic friend. The friend is distraught over Moon Gi-sung's loss in a top-tier match, ranting about ruined plans and demanding compensation. The streamer is unimpressed, rubbing his temples as he tries to reason with his friend. He eventually loses patience and hangs up, yawning at the early morning wake-up call. Elsewhere, Gyeol bursts into the office, his anger palpable. Woo-jin tenses up, sensing trouble, and Gyeol's fist connects with Woo-jin's face without warning. Woo-jin stumbles backward, stunned by Gyeol's sudden punch. Gyeol's glare is intense, his anger simmering just below the surface. Woo-jin rubs his jaw, wincing in pain, and tries to compose himself. He seems to piece together the reason for Gyeol's outburst, mentioning that some reporters are sniffing around. Gyeol seethes, his frustration boiling over, and Woo-jin's expression turns cautious. Gyeol demands that Woo-jin find the source of the leak, his tone dripping with menace. Woo-jin scoffs, unsure how to accomplish this task alone, but Gyeol's smirk suggests he's not interested in helping. The tension between them is palpable, with Gyeol's parting words leaving Woo-jin's fate hanging in the balance. Gyeol visits Yunsu, despite being told not to come, and Yunsu hesitantly lets her in, offering a cup of coffee. Gyeol takes a sip and immediately teases Yunsu about her coffee-making skills. She then gets straight to the point, questioning how Yunsu's informant's identity was exposed so easily. Yunsu tries to brush it off, but Gyeol presses on, sensing that Yunsu knew more than she's letting on. Gyeol pieces together the connection between the company behind Yunsu's match-fixing rumors and the case reporter Jo is investigating. Yunsu's silence speaks volumes, and Gyeol demands to know why she kept quiet. Yunsu seems genuinely confused, but Gyeol is convinced that her silence was intentional. Gyeol struggles with the realization that she might have contributed to the situation spiraling out of control. She feels guilty for criticizing Yunsu without knowing the full story. Yunsu downplays Gyeol's concerns, but Gyeol wonders if their friendship saved her from being taken down by Yunsu's mistakes. Gyeol sighs, reflecting on the situation, and Yunsu's expression softens, sensing Gyeol's emotional turmoil. Cha Gyeol meets his uncle in a secretive rendezvous, and his uncle's paranoia is on full display as he asks if Gyeol was followed. Gyeol reassures him that he took the necessary precautions to shake off any potential tales. The conversation shifts to Gyeol, with his uncle warning that she's been asking questions about him. Gyeol's annoyance is palpable, wondering why his uncle is keeping their meetings a secret. His uncle advises him to placate Gyeol if possible, but Gyeol seems resigned, muttering that it's almost over anyway. Meanwhile, Jo Seon is on the phone, chatting and laughing with someone about her new place, when suddenly a bike approaches and a rider swings a bat at her head. She crumples to the ground instantly. The person on the other end of the call remains oblivious, inquiring about the strange noise they just heard, unaware of the horror that just unfolded. Yunsu asks Gyeol to clarify what she meant by fine. Gyeol warns her that the situation will only get more perilous. Yunsu acknowledges the risk, but for her, it's about redemption, not guilt. She regrets that her reputation was tarnished without achieving justice. Gyeol interrupts, insisting that she'll take it from here. Yunsu is perplexed, but Gyeol explains that she's been entangled in this for years. She has a plan to contact Bae Chan-ho, the key to unraveling the mystery, without arousing suspicion. Yunsu is skeptical, but Gyeol is resolute, driven by a desire to prove herself worthy of Yunsu's trust. With a determined look, Gyeol thanks Yunsu for the tea, warns her to stay safe, and departs. Yunsu watches her leave, wondering why Gyeol seems driven by a quest for revenge. Gyeol ponders Yunsu's complex personality, recognizing that her sarcastic tone often leads to misunderstandings. Despite this, Yunsu consistently shoulders burdens alone, revealing a deeper strength. Gyeol recalls Yunsu's willingness to play the villain if necessary, and how her demeanor has shifted over time, from resignation to acceptance. Gyeol's reverie is interrupted as she tries to call reporter Joe, but a man answers instead. Confusion gives way to concern as Gyeol demands to know which hospital Joe is in. The man's hesitant response confirms Gyeol's worst fears. Joe is unconscious. Gyeol's determination hardens, and she vows to stop making excuses for her ignorance. Elsewhere, Woojin is on the phone discussing his new job and the challenges that come with it. He expresses frustration with Cha Gyeol, feeling that working with him is pointless. Woojin contemplates leaving the country but decides to endure the situation for now, curiosity getting the better of him. News of reporter Joe's situation spreads like wildfire, with Cha Gyeol emerging as the prime suspect. Gyeol visits his place, her nerves on edge, hoping he's not home. As she enters, she notices the dry sink, wondering if he's even been home recently. The empty house gives her a strong sense of déjà vu, reminiscent of when Nam-seo got hurt. Back then, she doubted Gyeol too, and his silence only fueled her confusion. She ponders whether clearing up the misunderstanding earlier would have changed everything. Gyeol wants to believe this is another false accusation, but she lacks proof. She recalls their last conversation, regretting not asking the questions that lingered on her mind. Fear of ruining everything held her back, and she's torn between her doubts and her desire to trust Gyeol. Gyeol walks in, catching Gyeol off guard, and teases her about breaking into her ex's place. She ignores his sarcasm, explaining that she knew he wouldn't come in if he knew she was there. He notices her hidden shoes and commends her attention to detail. When he asks if she's looking for the camera, she says they need to talk, revealing that plans have changed. Gyeol scoffs, but his tone darkens as he warns her that whoever she's working with should back off. Gyeol informs him that the reporter was attacked, and Gyeol's response is unsettling. She's horrified, wondering if he was involved. He shrugs, telling her not to act surprised. Gyeol begs him to stop speaking in riddles, but he doesn't care, believing that these people brought it on themselves. When she insists that the reporter is important to her, he raises an eyebrow, questioning her motives. Gyeol warns Gyeol that if she continues acting recklessly, there's only so much he can do to help. Gyeol finally asks the question she's been dreading, and Gyeol smirks, saying threats only work on people with something to lose. For a moment, he seems intimidated, but his expression quickly returns to its usual calm. Gyeol tells Gyeol she can't ignore the crimes happening around her, especially when people are getting hurt because of her. Gyeol's evasiveness frustrates her, and she says she can't take his side if he won't explain what's going on. He reassures her not to worry, but she's confused. He brushes it off, saying she's always on his side, just like he's on hers. Gyeol snaps, frustrated with his secretive behavior. She apologizes, but he tells her to leave, warning her not to do anything reckless. Alone, she realizes the painful truth. She was so afraid of losing him that she never truly saw him. Meanwhile, Gyeol checks his calendar, trying to recall what happened in July. He mutters to himself, unsure of what to do next. Gyeol works out when Nam-seo calls, assuming he needs money. He's offended, but then brings up Gi-sung, sharing rumors about his terrible game. Gyeol shrugs it off, but Nam-seo wonders if Gi-sung intentionally lost. Gyeol asks Nam-seo to clarify his concerns about Moon Gi-sung, and he mentions rumors of match fixing. He warns her that the person involved is cautious and advises her to gather evidence if she plans to take legal action. Gyeol repeats, match fixing? In surprise, and Nam-seo quickly downplays the rumors, saying he just thought it might bother her. Geo decides to contact Moon Gi-sung, and Nam-seo cautions her not to push herself too hard. She tries calling Moon Gi-sung, but his phone is off, leaving her wondering why he's unreachable. She can't help but notice a pattern. First Yeo Eun-soo, now Moon Gi-sung, and wonders why athletes are being targeted with these rumors. The lack of an official denial raises her suspicions, and she starts connecting the dots between match fixing, sponsors, and the potential consequences. Geo is lost in thought, oblivious to her surroundings, as she ponders the possibility of someone bribing a UFC fighter like Moon Gi-sung. She knows it's unlikely, given his background and determination. She searches for documents related to Park Woo-jin and discovers a connection between Woo-jin's business and Moon Gi-sung's past. The coincidence is too striking to ignore. Geo contacts Yeo Eun-soo, apologizing for the sudden inquiry, and asks if Park Woo-jin was involved in her match-fixing scandal. Eun-soo denies any direct contact with Woo-jin, but mentions the company name Global Deal Company. Geo's eyes widen as she recalls the business card Cha Gyeol gave her, the same company. The pieces start falling into place, revealing a web of connections between Cha Gyeol, Park Woo-jin, and the match-fixing scandals. Reporter Jo apologizes for not being able to go further into the hospital, citing her introverted nature. Geo reassures her, sharing her own dislike of crowded spaces. Jo introduces her senior, reporter Woo Jung-min, who greets Geo warmly. Jung-min gets down to business, explaining their plan to infiltrate Park Woo-jin's office. He shares some materials, suggesting they review them while discussing the details. The office building's weak security and upcoming relocation create a narrow window of opportunity. Jung-min points out a vulnerable emergency staircase, which remains open until early evening. After that, the security team locks the door and stations guards at the main entrance. Fortunately, the CCTV on the stairway is broken, creating a potential blind spot. Jung-min offers to distract security, taking care of that part of the plan. Geo asks about the exit strategy and what she needs to retrieve from Park Woo-jin's office. Jo hesitates, unsure if the file is physical, digital, or locked away. Geo notes the uncertainty, but Jo is determined to try. Geo reflects on her responsibilities, not just for herself, but for those around her, including Cha Gyeol. She's not ready to give up on him yet. Jung-min notices her deep in thought and checks if they're causing her trouble. She reassures him, and he apologizes for not protecting Jo from getting involved. Geo appreciates his concern, mentioning the unusual connections between people in her life. Jung-min nods understandingly. Geo adds that she has another investigation in mind, and Jung-min's expression turns curious. Cha Gyeol arrives at a restaurant, inquiring about the representative's availability. The man replies that he's not there yet, but should return soon. However, the restaurant is closing early due to a staff shortage. Gyeol raises an eyebrow, seemingly unimpressed by the inconvenience. He decides to grab a bite elsewhere, jokingly remarking that he needs to survive too. Before leaving, he instructs the man to inform the representative that he'll return in a day or two, his tone calm and collected. Geo and Jung-min stake out the security officer's car, which Jung-min finally tracked down after days of effort. He plans to create a diversion while Geo sneaks in. With a few swift swings of a hammer, Jung-min accidentally damages the car. He makes a call, pretending to be a good Samaritan, and arranges to meet the car's owner to apologize and make amends. As they wait, Jung-min cautions Geo to be careful, noting that the security officer's early departure might raise suspicions. Geo returns the warning, and with a nod, she slips inside while Jung-min keeps watch. Geo breathes a sigh of relief upon finding the office empty and texts Jung-min to confirm she's inside. Now, she faces the daunting task of finding what she's looking for. The desk is surprisingly tidy, making her wonder if anyone actually works there. She scans the shelves, but the documents might as well be written in a foreign language. She decides to try her luck with the computer, but the intranet login is a mystery. With no safe cracking skills, she opts to copy as many files as possible. Just as she gets started, footsteps echo down the hall, sending her heart racing. She dives under the desk, her mind racing with escape options. Before she can decide, someone calls her name, and she smacks her head on the table. Cha Gyeol stands over her, looking stunned. Geo demands to know how he found her, but he seems just as shocked. He scolds her, worried about the risks she's taking. Gyeol brushes off his concerns, but Gyeol is unconvinced. Their argument escalates, with Gyeol insisting she had no choice, and Gyeol frustrated that she didn't listen to his warnings. Gyeol cautions Gyeol to keep her voice down, and she explains her mission to find Park Woo-jin's documents. Gyeol suggests the safe might be the best place to start and advises her to take everything she can. Gyeol is surprised by his sudden willingness to help. Gyeol notices the paper in her hand and asks about it. She shows him her list of passwords, which she compiled using numbers connected to Park Woo-jin. Gyeol is unimpressed, questioning the effectiveness of her plan. Gyeol tries another combination, and Gyeol recognizes one of the numbers as Park Woo-jin's old subphone number. Gyeol's eyes light up as she types it in, and the safe unlocks with a satisfying click. Their celebration is short-lived as Park Woo-jin's voice echoes from outside, sending a chill down their spines. Park Woo-jin storms into his office, visibly irritated, and demands to know where everyone went. Gyeol shrugs, taking responsibility for Woo-jin's men. Woo-jin mutters under his breath, threatening to deal with them later, and suggests they leave for dinner. Gyeol stalls, claiming he needs to make some calls. Woo-jin raises an eyebrow, sensing something is off. He sniffs the air, asking what's going on, and Gyeol tries to brush it off. As soon as Woo-jin leaves, Gyeol rushes to the window and helps Gyeol climb in. She admits she nearly gave up on escaping. Gyeol dramatically clutches his chest, making her ask if he's hurt, but he waves it off. Gyeol thanks him, saying she thinks she can trust him, but they'll need to talk later. As she turns to leave, Gyeol warns her again not to trust anyone. Suddenly, she rushes back in, panicked, realizing the door is locked. Gyeol grabs her arm, pulling her along, and she demands to know where they're going. He leads her to the rooftop, revealing their escape route, the next building. Gyeol asks Gyeol if there's a safe way to cross to the next building, and he bluntly admits there isn't. She realizes he's suggesting she jump between rooftops and nervously asks about her chances of survival if she falls. Gyeol's deadpan response sends a chill down her spine. She tells him to stop being so pessimistic, but he insists she needs to succeed. His seriousness startles her. Gyeol then makes a surprising offer. If she manages to make the jump, he'll reveal everything she wants to know. The promise hangs in the air, making the risk seem slightly more worth taking. Gyeol secures a promise from Gyeol that he'll spill the beans if she makes it across safely. With a deep breath, she hands over her gloves and takes the leap of faith. She lands with a sigh of relief. Gyeol watches her go, pondering what secrets to reveal. But his thoughts are cut short as Park Woo-jin appears, sneering at him for letting an intruder slip in. Gyeol plays it cool, suggesting they catch the baby rat. Woo-jin taunts him, implying that the mysterious girl has made him soft. He summons his subordinate, Jong Pal, ordering him to track down the masked girl with a ponytail. Meanwhile, Gyeol struggles to find her way back to the main road, exhausted. Just as she thinks she's safe, footsteps close in. A man spots her, and with no other choice, she leaps into action. Silently praying her leg holds up, she thinks to herself that Gyeol shouldn't have made that promise. Now she's in a precarious situation. Woo-jin insists it's not his fault, claiming Gyeol jumped on his own. Gyeol rushes to Gyeol, frantic, her mind racing. She can't believe this is happening again. Gyeol winces, barely able to speak, and mutters something under his breath. Gyeol is confused but quickly focuses on the wound, pressing down hard. Her hands shake as she tries to stop the bleeding. She can't waste time. Help needs to come fast. She presses down on the wound, hoping help arrives in time. Gyeol glares at Gyeol, tells him to take his hand off her. He refuses. Say something, she sighs. What does he want her to say? Praise me. Is he insane? Probably. Ignoring her, he calls for emergency services, reports a stabbing. She frowns, worried. Is he in pain? He shakes his head. He just wants to see her. Something feels different. Like this moment was meant to happen, like he was born just for this. At home, his grandmother nudges him. Go shower and head to school. He sits up, staring at nothing. Did he die instead of Gyeol? No, he's here. But why this point in time? Why not the moment before her death? Maybe this time, he's meant to do better. Later, they plan a trip. Gyeol asks why. Gyeol calls it a vacation since they couldn't go in summer. He wants to get far away, far from Park Woo-jin. That man needs to be put in jail. People like him are why the country is the way it is. Geo beams. She loves it. She regretted not traveling before. He watches her, thinking about the second time he came back, how he felt regret. Now he wants to move to a new house. It's too dangerous for her to walk alone at night. She teases him. Who uses that as an excuse to sleep as soon as the sun sets? If we live together, he stops himself. It's not a proposal, but deep down he wants to stay by her side. His grandmother watches him closely. Something wrong? I'm going to school. But his thoughts are a mess. What if Park Woojin isn't the real problem? Why didn't he return to the moment before her death, but instead 10 years earlier? Why does he keep holding on to hope? Every time he goes through this, he realizes hope leads to nothing. Maybe he was never supposed to be her friend. Maybe that's why he was sent back. Maybe this is about him, not her. It's exhausting. Then she calls his name, hands him a handkerchief, apologizes for making him worry. He looks at her and thinks, maybe it's worth trying again? Because she's still the same. Gyeol studies her face with a quiet curiosity, marveling that she's managed to face life's storms without anyone by her side. He confides that now, more than ever, he plans to stick around, imagining a future where the two of them grow old together, a vision that softens even his rough edges. In his mind, every hopeful thought is tinted by memories of her unwavering support during his darkest moments, and he secretly wishes for a different start, one where her life wouldn't be marred by so much pain. Later, she confesses that sometimes in the still hours of the night, her dreams turn wild. Visions of herself battling foes, clad in unfamiliar uniforms, even serving as a guardian of the law. The strange images leave her questioning her own sanity, as if she's caught between reality and a fantasy world that she can't quite control. When he gently probes about the origin of these dreams, she deflects with a playful query about his own past. His eyes search hers for meaning, and he challenges her with a look that asks if his deep feelings have ever been taken for granted, to which she can only sigh, as if trapped in a half-remembered dream. She reassures him that her mind is in order, even though a professional once told her the same, revealing that she's started to recall conversations and events that feel alien, leaving her unsure of what's truly hers. His voice drops to a low murmur as he reflects on the persistence of those memories, a bittersweet reminder of his own struggles, which once landed him in a hospital bed, making him wonder if he should have simply pretended to be like everyone else. Despite it all, he clings to the fragile hope that, together, they can find a way forward in this tangled mess of past and present. Geo stares at him, waiting for more, but he just shrugs and says nothing's going to change. He talks about the day he couldn't take it anymore, how that's when he decided to reset everything. He reassures her he's okay now, that he's happy, but it's clear something still haunts him. She whispers, asking him to save her. He looks at her like she's asking for the impossible. He shakes his head, telling her it's all because of her abilities. He says this moment is the best, even if starting over at 19 wasn't the way he would have wanted it. She doesn't get it and presses him on what he means. He sighs, trying to explain, but it's clear he's still carrying a lot from back then. Geo doesn't buy it, though, pointing out that he took her first kiss when she was 19. His face tightens with guilt. He apologizes, but she can't help but smirk. Thieves can be considerate, huh? Before he can answer, Geo suddenly screams and panic sweeps over him. He jumps up, asking if she's okay. She waves him off, telling him it's fine, but she needs to find reporter Joe and get those files back. Gyeol's confused, wondering how long she's been awake and if she even heard his story. Geo explains it's about Yo Eun-soo and Moon Gi-sung, and Gyeol's expression darkens, understanding the gravity of the situation. Geo prioritizes helping her friends and Moon Gi-sung, refusing to let greed ruin their lives. Gyeol sighs, jokingly asking if he can at least pretend it's none of his business. Geo enters the kitchen, only to realize she forgot to buy water. She settles for a can of water instead. Gyeol walks in, teasing her about sharing, and she ignores him. He jokingly asks for the water in her mouth, causing her to choke and spit it out. Gyeol laughs and heads off to shower, kissing her forehead and leaving her flustered. Since that day, he's become more affectionate. Geo's phone buzzes with a text from reporter Joe, confirming their 4 p.m. meeting. Gyeol replies that she's bringing someone along, feeling a sense of hope. Gyeol asks Gyeol if she thinks he'll give up on her now that she's regained her memories. Gyeol says it's not just about them, and even if she ignores everything and survives alone, she won't be happy. Gyeol lets out a shaky laugh, feeling good about her determination. He offers to help her, saying he has no choice, and tells her to just enjoy a happy life. Gyeol hesitates, worried about the consequences, but Gyeol shrugs it off, joking that maybe someone will visit him in jail. The conversation turns serious as Gyeol brings up Yunsu's story and Moon Gi-sung. Gyeol dodges questions about his company, but eventually opens up about using Yunsu to protect Gyeol from Moon Gi-sung. Gyeol's expression darkens, and Gyeol reassures her that he's satisfied with the result. She agrees to contact a reporter, and Gyeol promises to stop her if things get too dangerous. He meets her eyes, saying that when this is all over, they'll live together. Gyeol snaps back to reality, wondering if she's made a mistake by agreeing to let Gyeol move in. He notices her concern and asks what's on her mind. She teases him about being smooth, and he smirks, making a comment about her hair resembling his ex's. Gyeol's eyes narrow, and she asks if he likes her or his ex. Gyeol grins, saying she's jealous of herself. He pulls her into a kiss, then says they need to go meet the reporter. Enjoying this story so far? Comment 5 below to see the next part. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, ciao!